This is episode 20 of That Time I Got Reincarnated in the Same World as an Anime Podcaster, where we talk about anime, manga, isekai, and all the meta in between. I'm your host, Isekai Sensei-Sama, aka Brad, and I'm joined in this Weeb Kabal by Bento Baggins, aka Ben.
Hisashibori!
And Kermit D. Grog.
Ahoy, ahoy!
We are friends that have been watching anime for a long time, talking about that anime, as well as the manga we've been reading. And so those conversations turn into this podcast. Don't forget to check us out on social media, rate the podcast wherever you can, and tell your friends. You can find links in the description and on our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com. So before we jump into everything today, got a couple news things to go over here.
Checking the news.
New season of anime coming up soon.
Yeah, we're going summer.
Got a couple series here I want to shout out. So first, July 1st, Am I Actually the Strongest? Is an isekai that I read.
I'm very surprised. Kermit shocked face. Or shocked Pikachu face. There we go.
Standard isekai thing. Guy dies, gets reincarnated in a world. He's overpowered. But there's some fun elements to it that make it its own thing. So It's a series I really enjoy. So. Mushoku Tensei Season 2, starting on the 2nd. Jobless Reincarnation, for those of you
thank you.
who don't
I was like, what's that?
Like the regular name. I don't think I need to explain that one. On the 5th, something everybody's been waiting for. Reborn as a vending machine. I now wander the dungeon.
That was a bait and switch, because there's something I know that's on that list that I thought that's what you meant.
Yeah.
And the next day, something some people might have heard of who listen to this, Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yeah! There we go.
Yeah.
When you said vending machine, all I can think about is like the transformations from Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh, yeah. There was a washing machine.
There was a washing machine.
You make a whole other isekai about that. Just a series of isekais about different household appliances he could turn into.
Or what if I was reincarnated into the world of Banjo-Kazooie? How about that?
What if you got to be reincarnated into like all of the rare 3D platformers?
Exactly.
Glover.
Ooh. First off, to be a actually guy, not rare.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to get isekai into a bad video game and see what happens.
What do you mean? Banjo-Kazooie is rare.
How is it rare?
It was made by Rare.
Oh, okay. You were right, Ben. You were right for a different definition that we hadn't agreed upon.
I didn't know what you guys were talking about.
Rare the company, not a rare company. Makers of Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong Country, and Jet Force Gemini.
I thought we were talking about Undercooked.
No. No.
That's a good game, too. Something else on the 6th that's coming out. The Most Heretical Last Boss Queen, From Villainous to Savior.
What?
So
Hearing that made me feel like I was having a stroke.
This is something for
the Most Heretical Last Boss Queen.
Slay.
Yeah. This is something for the Otome Isekai community. It's big over there. It's a manga, but it's pretty good. I guess it's actually more of a light novel because the manga actually got canceled and they're redoing it from the start.
Oh, wow. Weird.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because I was really into the manga and now I have to wait like years to get back to the point where it is right now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is some like shady webtoons nonsense.
It's not a webtoon though.
Isn't it?
It's a manga.
Well, I mean, they're on the... Is it a properly like
it's
paper
proper
published?
Yeah.
Huh?
And one more thing that's coming out on the 6th, and I know everybody's super excited for this one.
The 6th is jam-packed.
Rurouni Kenshin.
I was going to mention it if you
What?
didn't. Yeah.
What is Rurouni Kenshin
They're
doing?
redoing it. It's a
It's a remake.
Why?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess...
He only got fined. They didn't put him in jail, so...
I don't remember if who posted or how legit it was. It was like, oh, he can't make it to the premiere. And then somebody posted, it's like, yeah, there's a school within.
Yeah.
You can't be here distance of it, so he can't go.
It's really so unfortunate. because it's
Putting it lightly.
it's a good series, and yeah.
I grew up, before I knew this information, I will always say I grew up, and the one series that was at the library in full was all of Rurouni Kenshin, and I didn't want to read it.
So, up to everybody individually.
Make your choices.
Morally, if you want to support it.
I can't see what you're doing.
Then we jump to the 8th. We got 2 here for the 8th. My unique skill makes me OP, even at level 1.
My unique skill makes me pee.
Another isekai. This one, I was really surprised it was getting an anime adaptation, because like the manga, the art's not good.
I mean, you've talked about in the past how it seems like they're just reaching the money people that make these shows are reaching into the bucket. They're pulling up their sleeve. Maybe they're putting a glove on, and they're just reaching and rooting around in the barrel and then just picking one out of the pile.
Yeah, it's almost certainly the shovelware of this season. So, better though. The second part of Bleach 1,000-Year Blood War starts on the 8th.
I've been hearing people enjoying that, so
I haven't started watching it yet, but I probably will at some point. Because I enjoyed Bleach back in the day. However many hundreds of years ago that was.
That's what the war is. It's how many years have passed since you read Bleach.
On the 9th, Classroom for Heroes.
Is that not just My Hero Academia? Is that the knockoff?
Well, it's interesting. So it's definitely not My Hero Academia. It's in a fantasy world. Not an isekai, by the way, but it is a series that I read.
I know it's not an isekai because it had a very short title that wasn't a sentence descriptor.
It's basically just sort of like a fantasy thing where the main character Blade
His
is
name's
like
Blade?
Yeah. He's like an engineered hero. Like they took him from his parents when he was really, really little, and they did all kinds of stuff to him, and he's super powerful, and he like defeats the Demon King or whatever, but then like he wants to live a normal life, so they let him go to school, and then, hijinks ensue.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good. It might be a little too horny for some people, but
Okay.
Not the thing I want to hear about when I'm hearing about children in school.
So-
I
Yeah.
mean they're teenagers.
I was gonna say
Okay.
from the setup.
Most of them are teenagers.
Why does he have to be a hero? I don't know. I have so many questions.
Anyway,
Because everybody wants to be an isekai hero, Ben, right?
It's not an
Right, Brad?
isekai.
Right? It's practically an isekai. It's a power fantasy.
and then last and not least, on the 13th, Devil is a Part-Timer coming back.
Wow.
Jesus.
I remember reading about that when I was in college, getting back into anime many, many years ago.
It's been a long time, but it's back.
Devil's McDonald's.
I've
Let's
actually
see how
never
does
watched
in-
it, so
Neither have I.
I should
It
probably
was
check it
talked
out.
of greatly back then.
So let us know what you're looking forward to. And in fact, I would like people to let me know if you would like me to open up our Discord, because it seems like everybody else has a Discord now and people actually like get on and talk on the Discords. So is that what people want?
Or just find us on Shonen Flops Discord, which is where I mainly hang out.
Oh, I did like how before we even finished recording our interview with Deleted Saves, Ben got on his Discord server.
You guys were hyping it up so much. I was like, I gotta see this Discord server.
And that's a spoiler for later. Well, that'll do it for the news, so let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So fans of the podcast will remember that we did an episode on adaptations.
Yes.
However,
Many long ago's.
there have been many more conversations based around that, and I think more specifically towards how the different mediums between anime, manga, and I suppose books to some extent
Light novels.
do different things and allow you to explore different aspects of a story in different ways. Most recently, we were watching Demon Slayer, and one of the tropes that Demon Slayer relies on is like having these involved backstories for everybody.
A flashback in the middle of intense fights.
Right, including the demons, sometimes explicitly the demons. And there's there's something we noticed in that where it seems like a lot of those flashbacks take a long time. And in thinking of that, I was thinking, when this is in a manga, if it's a single manga panel for like, we're having, an intense moment of like staring or, whatever's going on in the middle of a conversation or something like that. A manga panel like that, you can look at for a second and then move on. But the medium of an anime requires that shot lingers. And so these flashbacks that could take 2 or 3 pages
at most
in the manga,
maybe a chapter, God forbid.
Chapter,
it takes 15 minutes in the anime or more.
So, my experience with Demon Slayer was Gotoge in the manga, they write it like...
Is that the author?
Yeah.
Okay.
After every demon is defeated, there is a chapter of their sad backstory. After every, good guy suffers a loss or a setback, there's a chapter of their sad backstory. And I think this topic got mentioned because I was like, it's less painful in the manga, and there's a caveat there of if you're not reading it week to week, if you're not waiting on that chapter, if you got the book or something, then you can read that chapter and move on pretty quickly. With the anime, there's much longer wait because you gotta wait for the season to come out, and then you gotta watch that for 30 minutes, and then you gotta wait another week to find out the thing you cared about.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's another thing to get into entirely is just the medium in the way of taking in a story of ones that work where you keep up with them week to week, and there's others where it's just like, I can't do this week to week. You need that kind of bull rush through everything. But yeah, that was the I want to start with that Demon Slayer backstory thing, because it's just like, you have to spend the time, you have to hear the sad music, like you have to agonize over this to spend that time, but I could see it being so much more reasonable as like, here's a chapter that's like the epilogue, where it can feel more separated and not like you're strapped in for the ride.
I think Demon Slayer is exceptionally interesting for this topic because everything else about the Demon Slayer anime is so heightened and so much better than the manga. But there's this very specific thing where these long drawn out backstories are getting annoying. And, that juxtaposition between the manga and the anime, it's almost even stronger because of the fact that the anime overall is so good.
Yeah. And I don't think that means it's like, I mean, that's what I think we're getting at with this episode. Is it's not like they did a bad job with those, but it's just by virtue of the medium that in animation, things take time to happen. It's not just, here's a panel, the act of you reading it and the way that the author has placed out the frames and what's going on, or the panels, dictates the flow and the speed of things. But in anime, you are moving at the rate that the anime has to move at. Mm-hmm. And that can cause frustration, where it's like, yes, I know, like, stop spending all these, I don't need another panning shot on this, like, please move on.
Well, it's the anime for Demon Slayer can heighten everything from, like, the art adds a ton, the animation adds a ton, the music adds a ton. But what the writing of Demon Slayer, and of a lot of manga, in my opinion, relies heavily on that, like, thing happens, stop the action dead, time for a flashback. And I've never liked that in anime, just because, I don't know, it feels like in a manga with chapter differences, you can control the tempo a little bit better, and you can have a chapter where it's like, okay, this exists within this chapter, it's on its own.
Yeah.
It's separated better. Whereas, like, if you cut in the middle of a fight in an anime, it's very jarring.
Yes. Every moment you stick away from that can be very frustrating. Or in a manga, it's just like, oh, it's a separate chapter. Some chapter will be back following this character. And not like, you're not just looking at the clock going, when are we going to get back to the main character or something?
I wonder if it feels different if you watch it, like, on television with commercials.
Oh, God, I haven't done that in a long time.
Yeah, we don't watch anything like that
commercial
anymore.
Break.
I don't know. Maybe, but, like, in most... It's a good thing and a bad thing about anime. The relationship between anime and manga is these days it seems like a lot more manga are like faithfully adapted chapter by chapter, sometimes like frame by frame.
Yeah.
And that's a situation that maybe could have done with a little bit of adapting. I think like they're so committed to doing everything in the order it came in the book that like this is a problem that Demon Slayer has in general, but I feel like it's more apparent in the anime. No one cares about the backstories. I mean, you can only watch.
I'm sure
these
there's some people out there.
Some characters' backstories, yeah, but not every character does not need a tragic backstory.
The freakish man in the pot who has twisted the swordsmiths into like a living statue, like a living grotesque statue, and twists the sword to make them squirm. Do you really care that his dad didn't approve of him? Like,
no.
That's my thing, is like, you can't.
But why is he evil?
That's not a very good reason to do what he did. Because that's the other problem, is like, if you're going to do that,
Yeah.
it had better change my entire viewpoint of that character, and it doesn't.
Or implement some important information of the world, a meaningful information of the world into the story. See, I guess jumping vaguely spoiler because it's One Piece and everything's vaguely spoiler because it's One Piece. When you learn about, you get like Don Flamenco's backstory, and it's kind of really important to the world of One Piece. But it is also very jarring to spend that time to clip away from like the city's on fire, and you're like, get back to the city on, like something will happen that it feels very pressing important, and you're like, yeah, there you go. We'll go back to Demon Slayer. Because the end of I had to freaking re-experience the end of the Pleasure District arc. You get to the end of the fight. Almost all of your buddies are dead or near death. All I want to do is see how they are doing and make sure they make it through. And what does the anime do? You have to spend 30 minutes with the two villains you didn't like that are already dead. And all I'm doing in that moment, I'm like, I just want to get back to my buddies. And it feels agonizing to have to do that.
Yeah. And that's an interesting thing of like, I do feel like if Demon Slayer had been written as an anime from the ground up, not as a manga, it wouldn't be structured like that.
I think
I was kind of wondering the same thing though. If you mentioned One Piece, is there's always this big conversation with One Piece now that it has gotten so big and so long. As a manga, I feel like the length is maybe less intimidating. Maybe that's because I'm more of a reader. But like, if I were to sit down to try to catch up on One Piece.
Oh, you can't.
Watching it?
Yeah.
You can't. It's not like, this actually flows in really well. I am somebody who will always, always, always say, read the manga, don't watch the anime. Maybe at certain points, watch a particular like big moment, but at times, the pacing is garbage. Like when I was watching it when I was in college, when it was, I guess Fishman Island. They did about a chapter an episode. And so much of the episode is, here's the intro. Here's a really long recap about what happened last time. Here's a really long thing about what will happen next time. And like so little
I always hated
happens.
that.
And it's I could shotgun those things really quickly once I figured out that you can kind of scrub through them really quickly, because there was so much information that you already knew retold to you over and over and over and over again, or things that didn't matter, or things that moved really slowly that just isn't a problem in the manga, because the manga is not trying to fill 25 minutes of television, because it has to fill 25 minutes of television. It's got the bucket, it has to fill the bucket, where the manga can just be, it's this amount of pages. Who cares? I'm freaking Ichiro Oda. I get to write whatever I want. Maybe not just that, but like the pacing of it is a lot better. And supposedly it's been fixed since I stopped watching ages ago. But like there's something that's big different between manga and anime, is that like pacing can be different. Or like another episode we've done a topic on, when filler can show up in the anime, also ruining the pacing, which like there's not filler in manga because, you know, again, see episode blankety blank that we did about that.
You know, something that just struck me, I think what One Piece should do is something
One Piece Kai.
Well,
people talked about it. I've talked.
Sort
I've
of,
talked. I said my grandkids will get to see One Piece. One Piece.
that might be the thing. But Overlord, what they did was they released the first season as like 2 movies, which, I mean, granted, it's still very long because it's 2 1.5 hour movies, but they condensed it down to the important bits. And so you can if you like want to get into Overlord, you can just go watch those 2 movies instead of the whole first season. And I thought that was like, oh, this is brilliant, you know. Now Overlord isn't even close to as long as One Piece. Yeah. So One Piece would probably need like 12 movies or more, but
so I have a weird example that's not based on pacing.
Go for it. This is all about the different aspects of the mediums and their particular powers. And
you guys haven't watched this or read this, to my knowledge. Oshinoko.
Don't know that. What is that?
That is probably one of my favorite manga in years. Got an anime adaptation this past season. It is about... I'm not... Spoilers actually matter for this one.
This is the Idol one, right?
Yeah, I wrote a post about
Go on our website, read Ben's post about this.
Give me a little bit. I haven't read that. I'm stuck in my cube right now. I can't get out.
So essentially, it's looking at the Japanese entertainment industry with a kind of negative lens. It's exposing all of the corruption, all of the seedy stuff, and it's not totally dark because it's also sort of coming around to like there's some good things. Why do people even want to put up with this? It asks that question. And one of the things they deal with in the manga is some of the characters are actors. Some of them are singers. They do even have a mangaka here and there. But the characters that are acting, the manga has to often convey bad acting versus good acting. And it's interesting to see how they do it on the page, and nothing compares to the anime adaptation. Because the anime adaptation, there's just nothing that can show bad acting better than bad acting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And bad singing than bad singing. They do a really good job in the manga, but I think that almost everybody who read that manga was like, oh, I hope this gets a good adaptation. Because it's missing something. Mm-hmm. You know it just can't be what it wants to be in this medium. But that was like, it happens so often with books where it's like, oh, you got a person who's got a story, and these are the only tools in their kit to tell it. Like not anybody can just write a good book, but like most people know how to spell. So they can write a sentence and put it on a page. And in this case, you had 2 mangaka. Most people, but sure. You had 2 mangaka who their talent was, we make manga. We got a story we want to tell. This isn't the right format for it, but we don't have access to, a full cast in a production studio. And so that one, it got a really good anime adaptation. I got choked up at a certain point.
Oh my gosh, I got to see this. I like stuff like this.
This is the one I told you that has the hour-and-a-half first episode. That's why I didn't recommend it for the club, because I didn't know. But it's on High Dive if anybody's interested. But yeah, that was one where it was like, oh, it's such a good story as a manga. It needs a audio-visual adaptation, because that's what it's meant to be. And it is really interesting to watch, especially in Japanese, and watch bad acting in a foreign language for me. Because it's like sometimes I'm like, yeah, I think that sounded like bad acting. I mean, it's one that might even be like better for a dub, because
if the dub is done,
I haven't. I haven't seen the dub, but like that could be one where
if it's a High Dive dub, if it's the same crew that did the Maid War and some other stuff I've watched on High Dive, I like their translation, their localization, and dub crew. So maybe I'll give the dub a go and see how I feel about it.
Yeah.
I think the main thing that I think about when we're talking about this particular subject is just how much of a difference there can be between series, because I would say, at least in my experience, most of the, and this might just be because of all the shovelware isekai, but most of the time I find that the manga is better. And then there's certain times, like in your case with, what's this called again?
Oshinoko.
Where there are things that happen in the manga that are better represented audiovisually, but maybe overall, like except for those parts, the manga is still better. But then there's sometimes you get these ones put out, and we always talk about these. Chainsaw Man, Spy Family are the prime examples where even though the manga is so good, the anime just even takes it to a higher level, and it's like, wow, this is actually better than the manga.
And I think it's where you find, and you know, I don't want to presume, but maybe this is what Kermit was trying to get to, is when you find the right medium for the right story. Because that happens it happens all the time with books, where books are really accessible format, but this needs to be a movie, or this needs to be a comic,
or this does need to be a book. That was what I found out. One of the starting things from months and months ago that was the germinated seed of this one was the multiple attempts I took at trying to watch the Hunter x Hunter anime and bouncing off of it really hard, even though I remembered reading it, enjoying it when I was growing up. So I'm just like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read it. And I started reading the manga. Thanks again, Shonen Jump app. Love it to pieces. 400 chapters, and just I kept chewing away at it, and I got momentum, and I got to experience all this stuff. And God, some of the stuff that thing gets into, to have to sit around for an anime for a man to tell me, because there are times where sometimes where there's just a page to explain mechanics, and if I had to sit through that in an anime, oh my gosh, it would be terrible. But because it's something I can read, and I read books, so I'm expecting to read a lot and not just be... Then it made sense. It clicked. I was not frustrated. I'm like, oh, cool, mechanics. This is neat. And not like, oh my God, get on to the next thing. Like, and I think it just... I mean, I'm sure there's parts of Hunter x Hunter that work better when you can have it in motion and everything. But there's parts like when they have to over-explain everything in a book that feels fine... Just because that's even if there's art with it, it still has to describe certain concepts that it cannot capture fully. But in an anime where you have that, it having to spend time to describe all these things just feels like I'm being spoon-fed things, and it's just, get on with it. Go, yes, get on. You know, it can feel very grating. And that's what I found interesting of it. And it got worse/better with Hunter x Hunter, where there was further arcs had even more and more just talking in words and thoughts that when I got to like caught up, there's like entire pages that are like small novelettes, and there's multiple of those per chapters about these people's internal thoughts about the situation. And like even reading wise, I was like getting close to tapping out. But like I could not imagine spending minutes on one not really important character's inner monologue about how they think about this situation. I'd lose my mind. But reading it was neat because felt like it made more sense in that medium.
There's also something I think important there where just within the same medium, the same story can be told in a different and way better way. And my primary example for this, on a very recent episode of Words About Books, they covered a Star Wars book. The first
Vector
one,
Prime.
the first one in the Yuzhan Vong.
Sure.
New Jedi Order.
What's the word for 20 books?
It is. I looked it up. It is 19 books. It is a 19-book series.
But what was very interesting about...
Just finish it off. Make it a clean 20. What are you doing? I guess they're leaving it open to leave you that when you're like, well, they have to come back.
What I found very interesting about this episode was that... So Ben had read it very long ago and didn't reread it. And Nate recently listened to the audiobook. And it was accidentally the abridged version.
Yeah.
Oh.
Still in the air on how accidental that was.
And the abridged version turned out to be better. And so it's like...
They had an editor or something.
It cut the fluff. The Star Wars books, they're all... And this is a problem in anime, too, is it's very side questy. It's like, go here to get a thing. You do this thing over here. Then, and they cut some of the side quests and it just flowed right along. 3-hour audiobook. And there's another thing with those Star Wars books where you would be surprised, and maybe you wouldn't be surprised because a lot of people love it. The Star Wars music does so much.
Oh my gosh.
For a bad story.
I'm rewatching all of the movies. I watched Attack of the Clones last night, and let me tell you, that John Williams score is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah. So if you just put the right music under some of those book moments that are really boring, like you could get it. You could get the energy going.
You can buff things super hard. I can't think of an example of that, but I mean we've talked about the inverse of that with Mashal, where the music choice is just not right and it's just making the scenes that should be slam dunks just not work, where it's just like, come on, it was this perfect layup of here's the funny situation, play silly music and not like play rap music. Like it's you have more paintbrushes to paint with an anime from a manga, but you have more ways to get it wrong.
Maybe that's the moral of this segment, is the fact that like it really maybe it's not so much about the medium itself, it's about who is putting together the story in that medium.
I think, I don't know, because I go back to Oshinoko, where it's like those are two of the best mangaka. It's by two people. And it's a story about acting being told. Now, Akane Banashi
I've been dying to bring up Akane Banashi.
Yeah.
But the story is good.
But there's
right?
something missing. We have to be told these performances are great, but if we saw an anime of it, we'd get to hear.
Yeah, if I could
we'd
hear.
We'd actually be able to hear it, and we'd get to decide if it was good, or we could go, hey, they're like that, instead of having to be told.
I think it can.
We have no other way of doing it because we can't hear their inflect. Like, literally so much about. What's the theater thing called? I'm blanking. Rakugo is that a singular person is doing voices and inhabiting multiple characters in front of you. And that idea can't be captured in a manga with the same, or really at all, compared to if you could see it in an anime or live. Like, that's literally, like, you can go, they've changed voices, like, oh, they're using a different font. But, like, the true feeling of, like, oh my gosh, I never thought they could make a sound like this. Or, like, this is the same, like, you as a viewer can't get that with a written word and an image where you could with when you don't have sound or movement.
Well, and that is, I mean, you're spot on with that with Akane Banashi, and it's the prime example of that is actually the most recent chapter, at least the most recent one that I read, where the one rival Rakugoka for Akane is a voice actress, and she comes out and she starts doing different voices for every character, which is apparently not a thing that they do,
supposedly.
And it's not traditional and everything, and so there's a whole thing about that. But like, you can't tell that from the the only reason you can tell, they draw the speech bubbles slightly differently for each different voice, which is like, I can't.
It's why you have a Speedwagon, right. Because there's they have to capture concepts that can't be captured. What?
Watson.
Also true.
Yeah. Well, but honestly, like that Akane Banashi, from the first time I read it, I was like, this needs to be an anime.
Yeah.
Like, no.
But it's still so good.
Well,
yeah, but it's missing. It's like Ben said with his series. It's missing something integral to itself.
I think it could be elevated.
Chainsaw Man. No. Chainsaw Man and Spy Family are elevated. Akane Banashi, which is already great, can be complete.
Yeah, Akane Banashi.
That's a good way to put it.
It demands to be animated.
Yeah.
It demands a good. Now, I'm not saying like anybody could write that story better than the people writing Akane Banashi. Like, as far as like storyboarding with the comic,
the anime could get screwed up. It is possible to do it correctly.
That's all the adaptation episode was about. Where this can be messed up.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be an anime in the sense that it can't be enjoyed as is, but it just demands to be adapted.
Yeah, it's like if you had a manga about people who made music, like you'd constantly feel like something was missing because the media, the thing in which you could take it in, you can't do it in a written page. Like, it needs to have audio, not even movement.
I wonder if it would be good live action.
What?
Akane
Banashi.
Yes, I think it would. I don't think there's much besides people looking really specific. I think you could make it live action.
There's a series, it's called Love is Hard for an Otaku. And I watched the anime. I think it's pretty good, but it's got a manga. They made a live action. I think it was a movie, but it might have been just a live action series. And they almost did it shot for shot. And it's a really interesting, and I think specifically for this episode, for this thing we're talking about, it's a really interesting, it's a really great example of what we're talking about, where it's like, you put it in these different mediums, and obviously animation to live action is very similar because it's audio visual, but like I would still call it a different medium.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. It's a different medium, but it's still they are more related than a manga to an anime. And like, I guess they're all related in a weird triforce. because it's like
Unless-
a manga to live action is no longer art in that drawn sense,
Right.
but now it has audio and movement.
Let us not forget the stage play musical.
Yes.
I was gonna bring it up. Like,
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
I mean, I can think of a couple of Japanese examples, I guess. I was going to say Rurouni Kenshin, actually. I think probably makes a better live action movie. It's probably more interesting to watch good swordsmanship be performed
Yeah.
live action than it is in an anime. But I would say, like, even with like some of my favorite musicals, like Jesus Christ Superstar, I'm very into. Watching that movie is meh, it's okay. I mean, any musical movie I've ever seen.
The
is
Jesus
like,
Christ Superstar movie is very much we are doing a play, but out in the desert.
Yeah. It's just, and it's so much better like on a stage. Like it.
But yeah, like, I guess that actually fits the medium thing. We've gone off the reservation, but that's what I love about when we do these things. It's like, yeah, we watched those, at least a clip show highlights of like some of the My Hero Academia ones and the Demon Slayer one, and I am dying to see the JoJo one that's talked about. I don't know if it's part 1 or part 3, but like
JoJo, the live action is part 3.
Okay, cool. I genuinely thought when that got announced, I was thinking about it. It's like, I feel like for a Western audience, you could adapt JoJo Part 1 into a stage play relatively easily.
Oh, you mean a stage play? I didn't know there was a JoJo stage play. There's a live action movie.
Oh, I was talking about they were making a JoJo musical. I think it's the same studio
That's
that
awesome.
that has done the other ones. I'm assuming that. It's not somebody on the West. Like, it's like a production company.
Oh,
but like, I personally, after I learned that, thought I could write an adaptation of Part 1, Phantom Blood, that could be a play. Because I think there's enough that you could capture.
Oh, if you had one of those big video rooms, like just the scene where like Dio and JoJo are fighting in the fire.
Yeah.
That'd be so perfect. You just surround the room with flames.
So would you guys then say, you know, if you sort of take away the fact that like a director or an animation studio or whoever can screw it up, do you think that the medium of animation is always going to, you know, elevate a series? Like if it's done correctly?
No,
because it depends. I feel like so much of it depends on what it's about. I feel like that's what we've been dancing around. Like, Brad, you talked about that. You're like, if it's done well, usually an anime heightens a lot of the isekais you read. But a lot of isekais you read don't really need audio or movement. Like, maybe they need it for like a fight, but it's not like dying for it. But there's certain genres. A comedy written and a comedy acted has two different energies entirely. Me growing up reading Bobobo in a manga and watching it and hearing people with like timing and inflection do these bits and jokes are kind of different worlds. I mean, we see that with Masha a little bit, where like sometimes the delivery of it was something unexpected and was like made a scene. It's me freaking being obsessed with Masha going Kimo to say cringe, you know, at least as people have been like localizing it. That's not a thing that could be captured by me reading the manga as like a joke or like a funny moment. It can add extra socks to it, but yeah, I think it all depends on what it's about, and to a similar but lesser extent, what the genre is.
So,
about which ones can get more or less power and strength from what medium they're in.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any I don't know if I could think of a hard and fast rule, and I don't even know if I can properly articulate why I feel this way about Junji Ito, but I don't think Junji Ito can ever be better than the comic.
I definitely don't think you can make a hard and fast rule about it.
Correct.
It's just more of my question.
So for me, Junji Ito, there's just something that happens when you put his monsters in motion that makes them goofy.
Okay. Yeah.
It loses.
They're not meant to move.
Yeah.
Some of the horror is that your brain has to think about them moving.
Yeah.
But they can't actually move or it won't work.
And you don't think there's any way that could be done like properly? Like, what if
I'm sure
they do like the Spider-Man Spider-Verse thing where they're like, oh, we're this is normally 12 frames per second. We're going to do it.
I don't think
6
it's about a frame thing. I don't think that's it.
For me, there's just something about the creature in motion makes it less like enigmatic, less like
it moving makes it real. It makes it a meat. It makes it a meat thing that moves around, and not just this existential terror that lives on a page.
His horror is meant to get into your head, and make you doubt your own perceptions and your own sanity. Like the whole thing with Uzumaki is all about just people looking at spirals and going insane, and you're supposed to start like
I like Naruto.
Wondering, but you're supposed to start wondering like how easy is it to like, what is the state of mind of somebody who's just so fixated on something? And if the closer you get to dwelling in that state of mind, the more uncomfortable it is for you. And you're like, I take a break.
That gives me a thought. The act of reading a manga, you can stop a lot easier than you can stop watching an anime, if that makes sense. Because like to stop an anime, I know this sounds silly, but please follow me. Like you have to hit pause and have to explicitly stop it to get off the ride. But a manga, you can wait for a page turn. Like you can just sit in a moment when something is revealed to you, and the way that can wash over you in the way that the anime, unless you hit pause, the cart is always moving forward. You don't necessarily have a moment to just sit and stew in it, because like the next thing's happening, or movement is occurring, or music is playing. You don't get that moment.
That may be exactly why.
Junji Ito, I feel like, fits that. It's a really good example of that, where it's like in that moment you just sit with it. There's the moment, like I remember reading like Parasite, and like you just get some like conceptual reveal that's like a small thing, and I had to take a moment to like stop and think and ruminate on what happened. And the train could just stop with me because I was the force of the train.
I think that's an interesting thing, because I can see that being a good thing in situations like you guys have described here, but I could also see it being a bad thing, especially from like an author's perspective, where they're like, this is how the timing is supposed to go on this, but because it's now on a page instead of being in motion, I, the author, don't have the control that I need over that.
But the author has a lot of control. This is a thing I will always remember. It's not for manga, but I will remember in, what's his name? Kirby something? Not
Jack
Kirby.
Kirby?
No, Falco, Scott? The guy who wrote the books about how to make comics?
Oh, yeah. I know who you mean.
Yeah. They're famous. He's written a couple of them. They're fantastic.
Will Eisner talks about this too.
Yeah.
Insert editor's note here.
Yeah, actually splice it in. It's worthwhile. I want to go reread these. I haven't read them in years.
The author you were thinking of was Scott McCloud. He wrote 3 books related to comics. In 1993, he released Understanding Comics, The Invisible Art, followed in 2000 by Reinventing Comics, How Imagination and Technology Are Revolutionizing an Art Form. And finally, in 2006, he released Making Comics, Storytelling Secrets of Comics, Manga, and Graphic Novels.
But like he talks about the way he talks about the medium of comics and the way that they can make time and space feel. Like if you want to make a moment really last long, you make multiple panels. So even if your eye goes over it, you feel that with it. So I could also see in that same vein that like I will read, because I am the forward momentum, I will read a manga more mindfully than I will watch an anime. I can't look at my phone when I'm reading. Yeah. That's not possible. Or I'm looking at my phone because I'm reading it on my phone. Yeah. But anime, I can become distracted. I can look at my phone. I can be doing something else with my hands. I could be getting up. I'm not consuming it as mindfully. That doesn't mean I can't at all.
Personally, I don't have that problem when watching anime, because I watch the sub. And you got to pay attention to the subs.
You do, but also sometimes you don't. At least, and by you, I mean me.
You definitely have a point there.
With Junji Ito, the fewer things that remind you that there is a world beyond you in this comic, the worse it is.
So you should watch the animated version in VR.
You just want to watch anime, Brad, even though you're bad at it like the rest of us.
In all honesty, I think VR would be better than an anime, for sure, for Junji Ito, for horror in general. Mm-hmm. But like, I think it might be different with something like One Piece, where it's meant to be like when you get that Junji Ito page turn, where he reveals a monster, it's in almost all of them. He goes to town. He spends like hours and hours and hours inking those things, and he's built special tools to ink them better and get a specific blood splatter. And he really wants you to look at that and just fall into it. Whereas like with One Piece, you know, Luffy's this magical god of joy or whatever now. I don't know.
Spoilers.
Is it? If even I know about it and I don't watch it?
Yeah, some people somehow don't know. I don't know either.
Like,
It didn't happen in the anime yet, right?
It's coming. People keep telling me every so often. I'm like, yeah.
but Luffy is literally a bouncy man.
Yeah, he's a bouncy boy.
The animation works really well for him.
Boundo man.
I mean, yeah, in that same vein, actually, I was thinking about this earlier. There is a bit, we probably won't get it with this next season, of Jujutsu Kaisen, where a character, I think I've actually talked about this on the podcast before because I just love it so much and I'm dying to see it. A character's power is literally based around the 24 frames of animation concept. And having that done statically in a book, I'm dying to know what this looks like in motion, especially in animation that moves at 24 frames a second.
That's definitely
and what that's going to do and how they're going to show it. Because, also I can cite a billion JoJo powers, very specifically Diavolvo's, King Crimson from Part 5, where it was like people. Also some of that was a bad translation at the time, but even when you read it with a good translation, it's just something you have to see in motion to understand what's going on truly. And that's something that you could describe it, and it was written down, it was given images, but until it moved in motion, until time was added to the formula, it was not a complete thing. You could not truly comprehend it. So I guess the idea here is some things need time, the dimension of time, and some things don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes the time needs to live in your own head and not in the literal thing that you're being shown.
I find it really interesting that this is something that you can't have a definitive answer on.
No.
There's
none of the things we talk about have definitive answers.
Is there a way for an individual that isn't as obsessive as we are to know ahead of time, hey, I want to check out this series, I should check it out as a manga or an anime or the stage play? Like, what is the way to consume it?
I think you consume enough things and you get plugged in just enough to the zeitgeist that you have a sense for it. Like, I had that. I'm trying to think of what I swear there was something recently where I was just like, this isn't working as a manga, I'm going to watch the anime, or vice versa. Yeah. It would help if I could remember that. But I definitely know I had that recently and like made that judgment call based on like, okay, what it's about. What do I know of things in the past that were similar to this? Would it work better in, what format? But yeah, I feel like it just comes with, in the same way that we're sussing out what makes sense and what doesn't in each medium, I think it just comes with experience that you get that sixth sense of like, oh, it's about this. This probably would be better, But also sometimes you get unlucky and it's like, oh, this would make more sense in an anime, but the anime was a dud, so it's actually better to read the manga. So
yeah, I
it's
think
never tried and true.
In my opinion, you start with the source material and then work your way out, because you'll know once you read a bit of Akane Banashi, you'll be like, I really wish I could hear Rakugo. Each one of us went out and watched some live Rakugo.
Yes,
yeah,
to get a sense of it that we can bring back to these still images and silence.
That's, as an example, like, that's one where we were like, I wonder how this actually sounds in real life.
Yeah.
We found that out. But then we're still reading the manga. We're like, I'm going to wait until the anime comes out.
We want to keep reading because, like you said, it's a really good story. Right. But like, I'm waiting with bated breath for the anime to truly feel like I'm getting the full picture. The full moving auditory picture.
I'm gonna watch the anime. Obviously, yes. We'll probably watch it together.
100%.
But like, I'm not gonna stop reading the manga.
No.
But
like, I don't know. You can like both, and still acknowledge that, like, I don't think you always have to be looking for like peak optimization.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
There's no winner.
Yeah, I say that in the vein of like, a lot of other people don't want to spend as much time on their entertainment as we do.
Well, then I would say you don't need to worry so much if you get it or not. Like,
So if you start it in one or the other, if you like it, keep at it. Like,
I saw a person who posted something that said, I'm reading the Lord of the Rings books and I just find the movies to be so much clearer. For example, in the movies, it's so much more obvious that Saruman is possessing the King of Rohan. And it's like, well, yeah, because in the books, that's not what happened. That's not what happens.
Oh.
So it's interesting that you brought this up, because I was going to say, this is all very similar to the debate of like, is the book better than the movie? And in most cases, I would say generally the book is better than the movie. I think that's a general consensus that people have. But there are times when it happens that the movie is better than the book. And I would actually side with this person that Lord of the Rings is better as the movie, even though it does change a lot of stuff. They leave a lot of stuff out. In general, the movie is so much more consumable and like more entertaining and everything.
And then you can take what you learn in the movie and then go back to the book with those images in your head.
Frankly, the books are so dense.
I was going to say,
like,
but sometimes that's what you want. Not
well,
you,
yeah, certainly.
The royal you.
There are people who are into that, but like,
I disagree with. I'm one of them.
Exactly.
I disagree with you.
Say, it's Ben. He's right here.
But
those people are right here.
I get what you're saying because in that one, it's a case where, look, I've tried the books, and it's this or nothing. Like, I'm not going to read those books because they are based on Old Norse sagas and Beowulf and Tolkien's like obsession with old epics, and it reads like an old epic. Everybody has very flowery language. Things have very long descriptions. People tell futures that don't make any damn sense. Like,
and some people are really into that.
Yeah,
and there's nothing wrong with that, Ben.
Well, and I think like the thing is, it's tough to say. Like, better is such an ambiguous word because, like,
no, that's a good point. It's
the
like,
movie does
what's better for you?
Yeah, the movie does not get the point of the books across as well as the books themselves do. Like, the movie does not get Tolkien's message across as well as the books do. But
because I'm pretty sure the point is that they have to destroy that ring.
Yeah, but I mean, like, his point was also to get you interested in those myths, show you the beauty of that language and all that stuff. But it's good enough. You know, like I said, for a lot of people, it's that or nothing. They're just simply not going to put up with that dense prose.
Have we ever thought about a movie that then got a novelization and went the opposite direction?
Star Wars.
I was going to say Star Wars. That's what I was thinking.
The Star Wars, the novelizations of the Star Wars movies are like
the novelization
so much better.
Of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2.
Oh my God. That's inside baseball.
Think about that. Okay, there's one last concept that I want to go a little bit back to where we started with the differences of it. The concept is, I know this is going to sound simple. I'm like presenting it like this big thing. The concept of skimming. So, an example to set the stage. I was reading, with Viz's new manga library that opened up, I was reading Daigo of Fire Company M, which is about this freaking hotshot, fresh out of college, fire college, fireman guy named Daigo, and him becoming a firefighter and the stories that play out of that. I'm getting to the very end. I want to make it to the end, but I'm really losing my patience. I can't, like, I'm not hooked as much, but I can't, like, I've got 20 chapters left. I can't leave it here. I need to know how the story ends because it's over. It's done. When it comes to reading manga, you can skim through pages, but you can turn a page, your eyes can take in the visual information, and you can kind of quickly hover over the text so that you're not really fully reading it, but if anything major important happens, your brain will catch it.
Oh boy, am I on board with you with this.
But in anime, you can't do that because to do that, you have to fast forward where you have no clue what you've gone by. Depending on the fast forwarding, you might not even see it. If you just skip ahead a bunch, you don't know what you don't have a sense of what you've missed. So with a manga, it's a lot easier to, I guess also akin to that Hunter x Hunter thing I was talking about, you can skim over information you do not deem important. And if it ends up being really important later, you go back and you read it properly. But otherwise, you're able to skim over like a flat bottom boat on the swamps and just not get tangled up in anything and just shoot right by it. Where in anime, you're
clear
stuck.
Bottom.
You are on clear bottom boat. You're right. That's actually a good way to put it. But where in anime, you are strapped in. There is no way. I guess you
in
could
anime,
watch
you're scuba diving.
Give me a shout out in the comments if you're listening to this podcast at 1.5 times or 2 times speed.
Well, no, that's because I had that thought, but the problem is like I guess you could do with anime, but the problem is if you're watching anime subbed, your time to read subtitles is now been halved. It's if you were watching the dub, maybe you could watch it quicker, but like you can read a manga on 1.5x speed, but it's a lot harder to watch an anime at 1.5x speed.
So I am so on board with you with this because I would say a good quarter of the manga that I read.
See, that's not healthy. I don't like that.
Potentially. But these are series where like I am interested in the overall story that's going on. But so often you'll be reading it and you get to a page and it's just like a wall of text wall of speech bubbles, and it's just like, nope, don't, nope.
When that's bad comicking to a certain point.
That too.
To a degree.
But also, yeah, you can skim it. But if you were watching an anime of that and you knew cool stuff was coming in the future, you'd have to sit there and deal with it because you wouldn't know what was important. But when you're flipping through manga panels, you can tell when an important panel happens. Your eyeballs tell you the art. The artist spends more time on it. Like, if they're good at their job, you will know when something important has happened.
Oh,
so you can just, oh, hey, look at this.
That's 10 times better with the cell phone comics. Oh man, when we read the stuff we read for heroin addiction, I do like it, and I do sit down. But like, for the first, like, always, if I read the prologue chapter, it's always like, and then like, give me the first part where it's like, okay, yeah, Four Kingdoms, yep, you're the like, illegitimate stepdaughter. Yep.
Exactly. You can fast forward through all the dumb bullshit you already know that you don't need to be told because you've done it 50 billion times and everything else, and it's the most rote garbage. You can just go bloop. But in anime, again, going back in some ways to the Hunter x Hunter and other things, you are chained to the ride. You have to take it in at speed. And there's no way to fast forward through it without losing it entirely.
Yeah. So
this is why you read One Piece. This is why you read the big ones, and then for important big battle scenes, you like watch the episode, or you watch that YouTube clip or something, or like freaking, like, I play the One Piece video games, or I watch the movies, and now when I get to read the manga, I can hear the Japanese voices in my head, or whatever else I'm reading. Like, you poke your head in, you take the elements you want from it, the voices or certain things, the feeling of things, and you just bring it back to your reading, and then you embody those as you read, and you keep using your power of skimming and whatever else as you read.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that fits in the, like, it's not like a choice, but it's the power of manga that, like, you can bulldoze through things a lot easier reading. You can meaningfully bulldoze through things reading it than you could watching it.
So I guess I would say that the conclusion here is check out series in the medium that you're most comfortable with first. If there's something about it that you don't jive with, check out the other medium that it's presented in, and then drop it if you're not into it.
I think, like, I would say my takeaway is don't have a rigid belief that one medium's always better.
Yes, well, I like that. I like that being the hard stone lesson of the end of this amidst the other philosophical questions about, like, look at things more, our normal, just like, be mindful of this that we usually end up on.
It's always like it's not black and white.
Yeah.
It's all shades of gray.
But if you're not a manga person, sometimes the manga's better.
Sometimes the story is good, but the voice actors are garbage and you don't want to listen to them. This is why I watched the, spoilers for later, the Akiba Maid War dub instead of the sub, because I'm like, I'm not going to be able to survive a bunch of these high-pitched voices for this long or take them seriously. And I was right. I loved the dub.
Moe Kyun.
Yes, indeed.
What is interesting, though, is sometimes you find that story that is just so good that you need to take it in twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get two of those.
I've watched the Lord of the Rings movies many times.
Sometimes you get three of those if you're Ben.
I've not watched The Rings of Power, though.
And this is where I'd put my middle segment, if I had one. No, in all seriousness, if you're wondering what's going on right now, we actually have something extra special this month.
Ooh.
You're going to have to wait a week because our middle segment is coming out as its own standalone episode.
That time the middle segment got reincarnated as a standalone episode.
We had a special guest. And we interviewed him, and it was plenty long, and so that's going to be its own episode so that this current episode isn't overly long. We had on Phil from Deleted Saves, and it was a great time.
Yeah, a delightful recording. Hopefully the first of many guests went very well.
So make sure you're subscribed on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on so that you don't miss that next week.
Check it out. We talk about video games.
And anime.
And
manga.
anime.
Interestingly, because I had heard him say before that he wasn't into anime and manga, turns out he used to be really, really into it. It's just not currently.
He's back when it was good.
He's a retired weeb. I don't blame him. It's a rough atmosphere out there for an old timer.
It was interesting coming to the realization as we were sitting there talking to him that I'm pretty sure the reason I like him so much is because he's just an older version of Ben.
Yes, very correct.
Hey, I'd be honored to age into deleted saves.
ご覧のスポンサーでお送りします。
Are you a fan of Japanese snacks and treats? Then you'll love Sugoi Mart. They offer a wide variety of popular Japanese snacks, candy, drinks, and more, all delivered right to your door. We actually got some interesting treats recently.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, what's this? Is this amateur Foley work?
The one thing that I really liked was the asparagus cookies.
That didn't taste.
That was
at all
it.
like
That was a big
asparagus.
surprise.
Yes, it was. But they were genuinely delicious and had nothing to do with asparagus besides their shape.
I would really like, if anybody has any information on this, please let me know why a cookie would be shaped like an asparagus. What is it about asparagus that somebody went, this should be the shape, this should be a cookie in this shape?
But was it? I guess the asparagus head.
That's exactly, I mean, that's what it says.
Also, why would you ever put the word asparagus on a sweet treat?
And that we were so confused because obviously, you know,
We ate it and it was like really delicious.
when we first cracked it open, Ben wasn't here. And it just says, what is it? Mini
It
asparagus.
says mini asparagus biscuits.
Yeah,
English,
and we're
'cause Ben
like,
wasn't here, so we were kind of you
We're
know,
like, is
babes
this
out in
gonna-
the woods.
is this going to taste like asparagus? And it's like, oh no, it's just a cookie.
We couldn't read the Japanese that said this food is poison. Don't eat it. You will die.
It says asuparagus. Asuparagasu.
Hamburgers.
Bisuketto.
But you should definitely check them out. They have a lot of cool stuff. Ben's favorite thing, he's got a little pile over there of the different flavored Kit Kats.
Yeah.
The ones we currently have are, what is it? Lemon salt?
Salt lemon.
Salt lemon.
Oh, that was it. This was a Kit Kat.
Yeah.
I guess yeah. I guess now that I've thought about eating it, it was a Kit Kat. Now it's in my stomach.
Very tasty. And as a listener of our podcast, you can click the link in the description or use code APR15 at checkout for 15% off your first purchase.
It's Anime Podcaster Reincarnation 15.
So head to sugoimart.com to shop their selection of delicious Japanese snacks today.
It's third segment. That's not Ben talking, right? It's me, Kermit. I'm pulling back my old podcast energy. Brad, play the clip.
Okay.
Okay. I know. We don't usually do cutaway gags, so it's hard to get around that. So,
Wah, 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 wah.
bum, bum, bum. Wait, was that the goosebump sound? Bum, 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 bum. So, this is Kermit's localization corner. In that I watched an anime that I also want to do a short summary and plug of because I loved it on High Dive called Akiba Maid War that I learned about from the lovely Shonen Flop Discord when I was telling people about Maid, M-A-I-D, to skate, which was pictures of maids skating, and it was art, and it had big Tony Hawk vibes, and I loved it, and that's getting made into a manga that I haven't checked out yet.
People might actually know this series because there was a clip going around on Reddit for a while of it's like a big battle, and there's just a whole bunch of maids shooting guns at each other.
Yep.
At one point, there's just like a line of maids that just keep dying over and over again.
That sounds about right. So, Akiba Maid War is 10 episodes long. I think it's done. It's an in and out.
Oh, just 10?
Yep, just 10. Or no, it might be 12, actually. I think it thought it was 10 for a while, and then there was 2 more, and I'm like, thank goodness, thank the heavens.
I get more.
Yes. Before we get into it, I would actually suggest the dub. I watched the dub and loved it dearly. I thought they did a really good job with it. It is a yakuza story played straight, but everybody is maids. And not like they're men as maids. It's mostly women in it. In these themed maid cafes, most of them after animals. They're all the animal ones in are like one major like family branch. It's very, if you've ever played the Yakuza games, it reminds me a lot of that because it's trying to do that like old Yakuza, like one of the main characters gets out of prison right at the start and them kind of reacclimating to things now and how it used to be is like a major plot point. So you'd think a series about maids in this would be very like horny or cheap. And it's not. It's just they play a lot of the Yakuza bits really straightforward, but there's comedy that comes out of the fact that these are women working at a maid cafe and serving people their drinks and doing dances.
I do have to say, comedies that the comedy comes from playing it straight in whatever situation, I love that.
But also, again, like I keep going back to the Yakuza series if you've ever played them. Admits the comedy of the strangeness and wackiness of it because they play it straight. There is a genuine heart to it. Mm-hmm. Like there's some stuff that happens later. There's stuff that for the most part that like no joke. I genuinely like cried or was on the verge of tears. Like it was really like it was oddly powerful. I like really got pulled into it.
Okay. Well, so Ben was saying he cried earlier. You're saying you cry. Yeah. I'll just put, I also cry sometimes when I read or watch stuff.
I'm an emotionally complete human. I also emit tears from my eyes.
I mean, it's not a contest.
Yeah. So that's I want to, besides recommending it, I want to get across the idea that it's this weird mishmash of like cutesy maid and admittedly at times like violent and intense gang warfare at the same time. Well, able to kind of somehow skirt whatever the heck that line is there. It never feels like, it's never cheap and schlocky, I would say.
Before we jump into the meat of what you want to get into with this, did you read the manga?
I don't think there is a manga.
Oh, okay.
I think it is literally fully formed as an anime.
All right, because I was going to ask if you think there's, especially given our earlier discussion, if there's a significant difference. So in that sense,
given our topic, there is no choice.
The difference between the sub and the dub, what would you say is like the...
I felt, and we're actually, I guess, going to get into a little bit with the meat of this then. I only watched a little bit of the sub, and I think what got me to go over... Actually, to our point earlier about picking a medium, in picking a sub and dub, there was a spot when I was looking through clips on YouTube to get a feeling of this thing if I wanted to watch it. There was a song they had redone in English, and I'm like, oh, they're going to do that. I want to hear this. And then I ended up really liking the English dub, and also I knew if I watched the sub, I'd hear a lot of like really childlike sounding voices as these women played maids, and it would have made me like, I don't know about this, homie. But I think the English cast does really well. I think the localization of it is really good. I had a really good time with it. I think also it spoke to me because there was a time that I worked in a maid cafe at a convention once. And no joke, I genuinely tried to pull out my old maid uniform that I don't fit in anymore because I'm too jacked, baby. But I was eyeballing new ones on Etsy, so look for that in the future. But no, so what this segment is actually about, besides this little, Kermit's abbreviated manga book club, is that, well, trying... one of the things that I love from this series is the intro itself. The OP is a banger, and I still listen to it when I'm like out and about. Like it just gets me feeling hype.
It's on our playlist. You can find our playlist on our website under our social links.
I didn't know that was a thing that we had up. That's awesome.
Yep.
Yes. I think it's got the name of the anime, or at least it in Japanese, which I don't remember exactly how to say it, but I'm sure it's like Meido something Akiba. It's really good. It mixes the like stark violence of the Yakuza part and the cutesiness of the maid part. So, but what brought me to here was that I was trying to find it on YouTube, just because that was an easier spot to watch it than on like going to High Dive and going to the specific episode and doing it. And I could not find the High Dive's version of the translation of the lyrics anywhere on YouTube. But one I could find was a fan translation. And I'm like, that's weird. And I was really jazzed about this show that seemingly nobody knows about because who the heck has High Dive? So I took it upon myself to compare them, and I made a Google Doc that was like, okay, here's the fan translation one, here's the High Dive one, because I liked the energy of the localization. I'm really big on localization right now. That reconstituting, when you translate something, that you have to fully reconstitute it. You got to put some extra spice on the other end that might be specific to where it got sent, so it's got that zest and that verve to it that is lost via translation. So I put this up. I'm talking about it in chat. And Ben goes, hi, I'm going to look at this. Or I guess, Ben, you can tell your part of the story if you want to.
Oh, yeah. You just made the spreadsheet where you had like specific phrases in the translations that you wanted to look at and see like why they made the choices they made. And I was interested in it. I was like, yeah, I like to practice Japanese. So I'll take a look. And I found I have a High Dive subscription. I'm one of the happy few because that's where Oshinoko is.
The one of 5.
Yep.
There are dozens of us. Dozens.
And I looked at it and I found the official kanji lyrics, which made it a little bit easier to work with because I could look stuff up. And like, I'm going to be real with you. I don't speak Japanese well enough to like have just watched the opening and understood fluently everything they said, especially because there's like a lot of puns and
there's a lot of puns
and jokes. And
Well, and singing in Japanese is so much different from speaking.
but this has a lot of slang, and that's where the fan translation fell apart too. For a lot of it is, if you didn't spend a lot of time like looking it up, you're not going to notice a lot of the puns. And it did help that the High Dive lyrics catch more of the puns, and so I was able to sort of like backtrack from there and figure out why they made the choice they made.
So, to be clear on this, there's the official translation in the subtitles for High Dive.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. There is no English dub version of the intro.
No English dub.
It's always in Japanese, but every other episode you get the English subtitles for it.
But then there is a fan translation subtitles for
Yeah.
on YouTube, which is essentially just feeding it through Google Translate. But it's baked into the video. It's not the auto translator.
It's our old friend Google Translate from all my rants about fan translation.
Which I think is what makes this even more specifically about my point about what localization is, that it adds that zest back in. And the thing that I loved having Ben's notes was where I could look at both lines side by side and go, okay, I can see them reconstituting, and there's somewhere I'm like, how did we get from this to this one? Like, that they seemed so different, and then Ben's like, oh yeah, the Google Translate got this super wrong. The High Dive one was actually super on point, if not more so. So we are actually going to, and hopefully in an interesting way, walk through the lines. I've got it printed out with the fan translation and
He's
the High Dive
literally
one,
got
and
notes.
then Ben's notes that we're going to talk about. And our good buddy Brad, who's experienced none of this yet, is going to weigh in on which one he likes better.
I saw the discussion going on in Discord,
Yes.
and I was like, okay.
I would suggest at this moment, if we can't put the entirety of it here, to pause the video. Maybe we can put it in the links to go listen to the intro. If that's not the case, I may attempt to hack it into some smaller chunks that we can intersperse here that we don't get copyright struck
I was gonna
on.
say, I think if you one strategy is if you broke it up into the lines we're talking about at the time, and then play the next line, and then play the next line. I mean, that's tedious, but
It's a little like that's why I wanted to do it in like chunks, maybe.
Yeah.
See, they say this because
it's
they're
mostly
not
just
the ones
getting
who
it's
edit
getting
it.
the vibe, because the vibe will change, and I'll attempt to capture that in description as we're going on. So we start out. It's kind of more intense music and visuals. Welcome back, Master, is the fan translation.
and then High Dive went with Welcome Home, Master.
Small, simple, easy starter, whatever. Home, a little bit more something to it. Nothing big yet. Next line. Welcome back, my lady.
High Dive went with Welcome Home, Mistress.
So, same vibe, but there's that thing, Ben, I know in your notes you talked about, like, the master and mistress, where it's like, this is a choice. Technically, my lady is correct, but there's just a certain, there's the alliteration of master and mistress that it just kind of fits together better.
Yeah.
Somebody made a choice here.
So what they said in the Japanese for mistress or my lady is ojo-sama. And if you're going to hear that a lot in anime, in Spy Family, Becky's butler calls her Ojo-sama. And
I see that translated most of the time
miss.
as my lady.
My lady or miss, or it's a high respect for a woman, usually like a woman who is like vastly superior.
I feel like the majority of time I see Miss as in like
San.
Miss Becky or something. It's San.
Yeah.
Like yours says Anya-san.
Yeah.
And they translate that in the subtitles to Miss Anya.
Yeah, I feel
Respectfully,
I feel like Ojo-sama is not something you would ever say in real life.
You might if you work in a maid cafe.
Yeah.
which is what this bit is.
Yeah. And then, so
Now, something I want to specifically ask about those ones, because the traditional like call response for someone comes home, and it's like, welcome home, I'm home, or I'm like, what would you say is well, first of all, what are those? And then what would you say is the more correct translation?
What they're saying is okaeri nasaimase, which is sort of like a generic like welcome. I would probably say welcome home.
Mm-hmm.
Or I the only thing I have with welcome back is that's a perfectly fine translation if the person is indeed coming back. But would you necessarily say that to a customer who hasn't been there before?
But also when you say welcome home, you continue this thing of me, hi, I'm your maid, I am your servant, master or mistress. And however small it is. So like we're going to start small with these. They get more intense as they go on. But this is feeding into this thing, and I'm getting more and more as I'm reading fan translations where like my freaking sixth sense third eye of these things opens up and goes, this is a machine or close to the machine translation. It's missing that extra character in zest where it's like somebody didn't try.
So what you have to know about
somebody wasn't equipped for this.
One of the things about Google Translate, and there's a few more that'll come out as we get into the more complicated ones, but Google Translate is designed for travel, basically, or just simple business transactions. So you would not necessarily be saying like welcome home to somebody. Like welcome back is a perfectly fine casual translation of this, which is what Google Translate specializes
It gets the
in.
job done. That's the point of the fan translation, the Google Translate. It gets the job done, but we're not doing a job. I'm watching a show.
This is flowery.
Yes.
And Google Translate isn't going to make it flowery because that's not what it assumes you're doing.
There's no drop down selection in Google Translate for how polite should this be.
Well,
then you would need other information, which you need the translator for.
In normal spoken Japanese, you do not talk like you're in a maid cafe. You would look like an idiot if you talked like this in just the street. Like if you walk into Starbucks and you say, or if you walked into a Starbucks and they said, "Okaeri nasaimase, Ojo-sama," you would be like, "What the hell is this?"
But now, don't like people who work in stores and stuff, like the customer service thing, don't they also have something that is like overly polite?
They do, but I feel like this has a certain element of like, again, it's like the whole like, I am your servant, you are the master. There's almost an air of like
there's obviously
royalty
a
to
big
it.
difference.
And like, if you did it here, I feel like it would be a joke.
Yeah, the word you're thinking of is okyakusan or okyakusama, which is guest or customer. You wouldn't. This is just needlessly flowery.
But they also, you wouldn't say welcome back or welcome home in that instance.
You might
Again, it's
say
the specifics
okaeri
of the maid
okaeri
cafe.
nasai.
Okay, let's keep rocking and rolling. So the next up, the fans translation is fuss-filled rice omelet. It will be delicious, moi moi kun.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
What?
What does that even mean?
What, moi moi kun?
No, that whole sentence.
Fuss-filled, like fussy, fuss-filled rice omelet. It will be delicious, moi moi kun.
It is something you would order at a maid cafe.
I don't understand what fuss-filled means.
Again, this is the thing of the auto translation where it's like you can kind of get a sense of it, but I'm also still confused of the exact meaning. So I feel like fuss-filled is like, I mean, here, let's hear what did High Dive do with it.
High Dive said, omelet fully loaded with chicken and rice. Make it yummy, moi moi kyun. Because moi moi kyun is nonsense.
If memory serves, at the moment where they're saying that line, you're seeing a gun get loaded. A revolver is being loaded bullet by bullet. So besides it being more interesting, it matches what you're seeing on screen. There's a lot of
fully loaded.
That's why
with
you need
the
to
gun.
see the visual as well. Because there's a lot of like double double talk between what they're saying and the visual that changes the context, where it sounds cutesy, but then you see, the more yakuza side of things.
What is how do you get from, I mean, I have a feeling like in the Japanese that they're saying, they don't list all of the ingredients of it. But how do you get from, here's an omelet that's got a lot of stuff in it, to fuss-filled?
So the Japanese is ranchiki taburi omuraisu. And this is a word I didn't know. Ranchiki is...
I bet that's chicken.
No, it's not.
Oh, it should be.
It means... I think that's where the chicken comes from. I think it might be a pun. Ranchiki is a word. And it means like drunken, boisterous, rambunctious. Like that kind of fun, that kind of like wild fun.
Like hot blood, this hot blood made made omelet, but also there's that, I guess maybe because there's puns of like, again, that whole thing of like seeing a gun get loaded, so it's fully loaded.
Yeah. And it might even have that connotation in Japanese. I'm not really sure. But tapuri means plentiful, abundant, generous. So ranchiki tapuri means like, I think fully loaded is a good translation.
Sure.
Like a fully loaded baked potato or something. Because they're just going wild with the ingredients. We're just putting everything in there.
And it's also a double talk pun of like, we've loaded all of our weapons up. So I think it's really clever. It captures the high dive one is really clever. It captures the idea and it captures like the pun and the energy.
And that's even more cleverer because on top of that normal thing that they're doing by listing the ingredients as chicken, like you said, even though it doesn't mean that, because it's got chicky in it.
And it could have been an intentional. This is one I wasn't sure about. It could have been an intentional double meaning pun.
So like in Japanese. A Japanese listener would hear that
ranchiki and they might
go,
think
like chicken.
Chiki rice.
English. In English, it's chicken.
Because there are bits of English in this intro that we will get to later.
That's a. Are there more like this? Because
there's a bunch.
There's some real cool stuff on here. I do want to make a point that I think it's interesting. I think it's a good choice for like capturing, like Ben, you've talked about like not losing the Japanness of things, that they don't translate moi moi kyun, because it's just like, here are some cute noises. I think, or I guess like, does moi kyun mean something specific?
No, I mean the closest I've ever gotten with translating moe is it means like bud, like a flower bud or a plant.
But it's used as slang, and we covered this in our last
We did.
Beginner's Guide to Anime Manga Part 2. It's used in slang to mean like some almost like kawaii,
the bloom of youth.
But
cute.
like most of the time used for someone even younger than you would normally be like, you can determine on your own how creepy moe is.
Yeah. But like to me it's a little creepy. But
so in that case, they're using it to be like cute, and kyun is like the slang cute way to say coon.
Yeah. So I think kyun is just a sound effect. Moi moi kyun.
There's some other onomatopoeias later.
I've heard people use specifically kyun as in like say someone's name kyun to be like a cuter way. Like they're making
maybe
coon.
It's like baby talk.
It's
a little bit. Maybe not that far.
It's like you would normally say chan in that circumstance, but you can't because they're not young enough or something like that. So you make it cute by saying kyun instead of coon. That's how I've heard it a couple places. Whether that's accurate or not, I can't say.
I do want to say, actually, taking some of the energy before we move on, and not just the big ones, but the small stuff. I like that the fan translation is, it will be delicious, but High Dive, you get that sort of like cutesy talk that is sort of the maid, like, wow, like that kind of big, almost babyish cartoonist of make it yummy.
Yeah.
Which has got so much more, even though it's not as important as this like double talk pun complexity, it just has more feeling to it than just it will be delicious or make it delicious.
As you said, there's going to be more of these, but like that whole thing is just a perfect example of like machine translation is not good enough.
You got it. Some of it will miss, but some of it you can. I feel like it will be delicious. You can reconstitute into things like make it yummy, where you can capture the vibe of who's talking, what's going on here, what's the vibe you were supposed to be getting.
But even like the beginning part of that, like we already covered, the fussy thing. It's like what What? How does that? That's not even a thing I can conceptualize because you might be translating it literally, but it's so far from the meaning.
Yep. Okay, this next one's actually pretty much identical. Plenty of milk with plenty of love. Let's cast the spell. Moi moi kyun.
Yep, and then High Dives was with plenty of milk and plenty of love. Let's cast a spell. Moi moi kyun.
They moved with.
Yeah,
That one's oddly agreed.
I think I think the Japanese. Let me see if I wrote it down. Miruku tapuri, aijo tapuri. Yeah. So it just says miruku tapuri, aijo tapuri. Plenty of milk, plenty of love.
So literally, literal that there wasn't anything to do with it. This is we're describing, we're making tea or something.
If we were to say that in English, you could just simply say plenty of milk, plenty of love. If somebody asked you how do you make, or what are the ingredients? Plenty of milk, plenty of love.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is one where like Japanese has different articles of speech and different ways of like they drop the subject most of the time. So I think like with plenty of milk and plenty of love is probably closer to how like a native English speaker would say it.
It also then leads into the next line of let's cast the spell.
Yeah.
Moi moi kyun.
I wonder if our listeners are aware of that thing of maid cafes where when they deliver your food, they quote unquote cast a spell over it to make it delicious.
I did not know that.
I wasn't aware of that.
I
Really?
didn't know that.
This is a whole like I don't know anything about moe
I know I was
culture
a maid, but I was
any of
also
that.
I was a photographer and a general like walk around character, so to speak. So I didn't serve food.
I don't know if they do that in like the American maid cafe things.
We have to visit one. I've talked about it. We got to go visit one and do a segment on one.
It's something
It's
I've
cool.
seen.
It's not cringe. I promise you. It's not chemo.
I've seen it in everything that's got a maid cafe in it I've ever seen. Is they bring out the amu rice and they have a heart drawn and ketchup on it.
That is a big thing. Ketchup drawings
Yeah,
is
they
a
do
big
that.
thing
And
in
they-
Akiba Maid War.
And it might be Myo Myo
Moi moi
Moi
kyun.
Moi
That would make sense.
Kun what they do, but like they make a heart with their fingers
Yep,
and like
that's the thing. Yep,
Yeah.
I did a lot of that as well.
Oh,
well now you know.
that is
I contributed.
Thanks. See, we're all part of this. So before we go on, there was one detail that I forgot that's going to become more and more important as we go through this. So the main character and the rest of them, their maid cafe, because they're all based on animals and the major family they're in, is pig themed. They are the lowest rung of all of the Creatureland group maid cafe quote unquote gangs. They are always at the bottom. They are seemingly always on the chopping block. They make the least. Everybody else steps on them. They are the lowest. They are literally the pigs. This is important for the next line. So the fan translation is, "I'm so happy that so many masters came today to Oink." Yes, that doesn't make sense at
and
the end.
so the High Dive one is seeing so many masters here makes me so happy. Oink.
Okay, so
And they spell it like so.
the oink is like the maid going, our theme is pigs,
it's
so
the
I'm
little
gonna
piggy.
make a yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I think the sound effect is for oink, and I learned that from this. I didn't know this. Is like poo or something, which is or
I
boo,
think I've seen what
boo.
you're talking like
It's
P-U-U.
boo. It's boo.
Ah.
Sorry, I can't read my tiny font. It's the difference between like a quotation mark and a circle. And I
I
can't quite
always
make it
wonder how the Japanese get their like
onomatopoeias.
animal sounds.
There's onomatopoeias
be
later.
fair.
That's going to be my big thing. Where it's like I saw some fan translation, some manga where they didn't translate the onomatopoeias correctly, even though they're technically in English. It's like I don't know what the sound is implying. I don't have this in my brain sound word library. Like pick a different noise.
So like if I were to read the sentence in Japanese, I don't know if you want the whole thing, but the one I'm going to talk about is basically Kyomo Takusan Goshujin Sama. That I would translate as like today there's so many masters. So when you rearrange the whole sentence, it's basically I would say I'm so happy to see so many masters here today. seeing so many masters here today makes me so happy. Totally fine.
Pretty much the same thing, but I don't know. I feel like the other high dive ones got just like a little bit more.
It makes it cutesier.
It makes it more like you can see somebody saying it, like one of the maids saying it.
Yeah.
This is probably a really good one where having the line actually interjected here would be really helpful.
The only thing that the high dive dropped is today. The word today. Kyo.
Which it doesn't need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they do specifically say today. They didn't translate that. So I was like, well, for the fan translation, I guess technically all of the words are there. It doesn't sound as good, but I don't know if you really care. Like it's like Kermit said, it's not an important detail.
Yeah.
I guess you can, I mean, you obviously get away with that because the way that the person speaking is speaking about there being so many masters implies that they are currently looking at so many masters.
Also, let it be said that a lot of the lines in this, again, hopefully you've gained this by, hopefully the clips we've put in or going and watch it yourself, are sometimes said by different characters, different maids.
Well, and I guess
different ones are interjecting different things.
Yeah, and they also said they used the verb like to come, like came today. The high dive doesn't use that verb, but conveys the same point. And this is, I would say, like that's localization. There is a more literal translation you could find of it, which the fan translation is really closer to literal.
Great example of literal translations are not always better.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually they aren't. Okay. I'm a maid from the Moe Moe forest who works hard, oink.
High dive went with fresh out of the Moe Moe forest. This maid's going whole hog, oink.
That is one of, like, there's one later that is, like, probably my favorite line that I will quote every time I'm listening to it, but I just love fresh out of Moe Moe forest, because it's got such a vibe to it.
Yeah, that's a big
Because that just goes from a
one.
statement of fact of, like, I'm from Moe Moe forest, to, like, fresh out, like, that's, you get fucking fresh out of, what's the actual album?
Straight out of Compton.
I'm thinking straight out of Compton. No, I'm thinking, no, because the Weird Al ones, I think, like, fresh out of Linwood or something.
Oh.
That's what I was thinking about. Like, no, I want to say the original one. Yeah, but it somehow invokes that in a way that just gives it this wonderful energy to it.
So, yeah, this one, the fresh out, I mean, that was obviously a choice on their part. The fan translation's pretty close to literal. What gave me a little bit of trouble was trying to figure out where they got whole hog. And this is where basically they say for works hard in the fan translation, they replace that with going whole hog in the high dive translation. And I think that comes from the word they use to describe their hard work. They describe it as like thorough, which is tokuton, and ton means pork. And so I do think there is a pun in Japanese that I don't understand fully. And I think it has to do with pork. And so whole hog is probably like a very close English approximation.
Which is a pig pun on.
Yeah.
Our listeners might be familiar with tonkatsu.
Yeah.
I was going to say also Ton from Agretzko, who's their pig boss.
Yeah.
Ton.
Buta is pig, ton is pork.
Oh, okay.
I wonder if there's a thing there with Seitan Academy.
What?
That anime with the animals.
Oh, almost assuredly there's puns in there.
Oh, well, right. But I'm like, is the name of the school specifically a pun that has to do with pigs? And I don't know.
Something to figure out later.
If you know, let us know in the comments.
We've got another welcome home, dear sir.
Which High Dive went like at least consistently with welcome home master. This was in Russian.
So there's a Russian maid. It's a mini spoiler. I think the line, at least in the intro, I couldn't bend the visual intro from High Dive at the time.
So
with the even numbered episodes got it written out phonetically in Japanese.
So she's actually speaking Russian.
Yeah. If you look at the actual lyrics, this is in like Cyrillic alphabet. Like this is Russian.
And the next line, I guess, in that same thing is, kawaii is our everything, oink.
Kawaii is justice, oink.
Like what a just wonderful, like, and especially because it's like this yakuza thing and upholding their honor as a family amidst these other ones, like, but also it's this like cutesy thing.
I wonder why they left kawaii in there.
Again, this is Russian.
Even the fan translation left it as kawaii.
Because I think that's a known word now.
She says kawaii in Russian. Like,
that's even better.
It's spelled out kawaii in Cyrillic. So she is saying the word kawaii. The rest is in Russian. Like the is justice part is in Russian.
I like that, even actually coming from the Russian maid, that's even better.
Yeah. So I'm giving it to him. I don't know anything about Russian, so
Sure.
I can have it. Okay.
Well, I don't think kawaii is a word in Russian, so yes.
I don't have my notes. I don't know if I would have had notes for this one. So, but the next one is the best and strongest person's makeup, raising the tension.
Wow. Okay.
High Dive went with my makeup's just the bomb, like OMG.
That's the Garyu.
Gyaru.
There is actually a girl, like, I don't know if she's the one saying it because I don't know what their actual Japanese voices are, but there is a character who's big into makeup who, at least in the dub, which is probably why that line is like that, would say something like that.
And she's got a tan.
What? Yeah, she's tan. I don't know if she's tan or she's tan via makeup, but there's like a bit where she wears a lot of makeup and somebody tells her to take it off, and she's like really not doing well during that episode. But she's someone who definitely would say, OMG. Like, that's how she talks.
Yeah, that's a whole
thing.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah. We could talk about Gyaru because there's a really interesting crossover there with how America influenced that. But
well, stay tuned for
another
episode 23 for that.
Oh, okay.
But so for this one, this is where I started to suspect we were just Google translating for the fan translation. Because I didn't recognize a lot of these words. I can't even really claim to say I know what's going on with this sentence. But when I take the kanji and I put it into Google Translate does its best. There's some slang here. But if you don't read kanji, and this is where I've been saying with the fan translations, is like, if you just learn a little bit of Japanese, you can look stuff up and you can know when stuff's not right. The Google Translate shows you like what you put in and then what it translated. Mm-hmm. And often it will just drop kanji out.
Oh.
And one of the kanji it dropped was the kanji for Oni, which is demon. Yeah. And so it does say something about raising the tension or making the tension go up. And it has a connotation to me that it would be like a dark tension. And so there's possibly a bomb pun here, a makeup pun here. I don't really know. But what the High Dive does, I would give them the benefit of the doubt and say there's something there that I don't understand. Because while this lyric is playing, the bomb analogy works in the cartoon. Like, she's saying, like, my makeup's just the bomb. Like, they're readying weapons and
chucking a grenade or something.
Yeah.
So I would say, even though we have the little clips that we're interspersing here, should definitely go watch the
visual.
Actual,
is important to get that swap between we're about to enter the part where it becomes a maid dance and the style of the music changes and the visual change incredibly. So it is worth your while. I think it's either that line or the next line where you see the very naive main character cooking in the kitchen and in slow motion seeing this like oil fire roar up at her, and it's kind of an uncomfortable sight to see while these cutesy lyrics are going on. And again, it's that juxtaposition between those two things is one of the things that made me really love this series. Ready for the next one?
Yep.
Okay, this one's kind of straightforward. Vegetables, oily, salty fish. I can't read the word that's here because it got messed up. It looks like garlic and omelet.
Garlic omelet, yeah. So in that was just wrong. But in the High Dive, they said ramen, extra veggies topped with sauce, fat, and garlic aplenty.
I like aplenty. Aplenty is definitely like a word that you'd never get from an auto translator.
And yeah, this was simply a case of like High Dive is correct and the fan is not correct. One of the things that might have made it hard to translate, I don't know how they were translating, if they looked up the lyrics the way I did and just started copying and pasting into Google Translate. This bit of the lyrics I noticed was written in katakana, all of it.
Oh.
even the Japanese words, which is not usually what they do. Like usually Japanese words are kanji and hiragana, and the particles of speech are hiragana, and then foreign words are katakana. But sometimes they'll use katakana like all caps to emphasize something.
Yeah, okay.
So I was wondering if maybe that's what was going on there. I'm not really sure why that happened, but yeah, this was like High Dive's right.
Maybe.
Also, it's just a bunch of ingredients. Like, it's one of the lesser.
So maybe
lyrics.
in that case, they're going for like, here's the menu item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. I wasn't really sure. It's not clear from the video either. There's no real indication. They're just kind of like, it's more of like a rap section. Like not a rap section, but like spitting fast.
Yeah, there's a lot of people kind of talking over each other at this point, if memory serves.
This is ridiculously complex, by the way, for like an anime opening. Like,
yeah, well, also,
It is
you
weird,
wouldn't normally
yeah.
dive into this
Yeah.
much. Like, I kind of want to release this as like its own video as well, because I think this is neat. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do something like this, and I'm such a sucker for this localization stuff, which is why I did this. And thankful Ben for making notes then. So this next one's one of those essentially straightforward ones. The fan translation, welcome back to the pigsty. I'm surprised they got pigsty, unless it was just written out phonetically in the Japanese. I don't know.
Yeah. Welcome home to the pigsty.
Yeah, same thing as the whole welcome back, welcome home master. Pigsty, pig pun. Or pig place for pigs. And then we get into the actual, like, okay, the maids are on stage. It's time to dance into a cutesy number. And we get to some of my favorite lines in the whole thing and my irritation with badly translated onomatopoeias. Hey, my maid way.
Hey, this is my maid way.
So this is a part where we get a little bit of English, because you can hear maid way
Yeah.
when
So
you're listening to the Japanese.
the lyric is, hey, watashi no maid way. Watashi no maid way. Yep. So no is just a possessive article in Japanese. So watashi no is my.
Boku no.
Yeah. Boku no Hero Academia.
what's that?
So what I think High Dive got right here by adding the this is, and because they do just literally say, hey, my maid way. Japanese drops the subject all the time. In this case, their way, this is the subject. Saying this is my maid way is how a native English speaker would say it. When you would say, like in Japanese, watashi no maid way da, you're saying this is my maid way. So yeah, this was a case of like they found the dropped subject, I think.
I've got this in my head. I can't remember the word though, because it's Japanese. In Naruto, they're always going on about like, this is my ninja way.
I don't know what the original was. I know what you're talking about, but I only know Ninja Way. I only know the English one.
I know they don't say in English ninja way. There's a Japanese.
Shinobi do?
No, that's not it.
Brad, future Brad, splice this in.
Editor's note goes here. The word you're looking for is nindo. As far as I can tell, this word is exclusively from Naruto. It consists of two kanji characters, nin and do. The character for nin means endurance, forbearance, patience, self-restraint, but is also the same character as the word shinobi. The character for do can translate literally to way, but has the context of a creed or even religion.
Freaking, this is my maid way was powerful enough for me that I made one of my painted signs for it and flecked it with blood. So maybe we'll post that with the episode then, because I'm really happy with how it came out. Next line, to your heart, dun dun dun, spelled D-O-O-N. This is one of those onomatopoeias where it's like, what's that supposed to be? I don't know. I don't know what that onomatopoeia is.
I can see how that would be confusing reading it in the subtitle. I think it
and
probably
hearing it to an extent.
Well, I think it probably makes more sense if you were just hearing it, because especially if you know what the other words are, because yeah, the onomatopoeia, it's your heart.
It isn't. Well, it kind of is. It's I guess it kind of is. I always read it as another thing. They do here. I'll let Ben say the line, the high dive line, and then I'll describe what's going on visually.
Shot through your heart like boom, boom, boom.
So they're making like little like finger guns, and they do this little like unloading, blow the barrel off like in their dance moves, and it's really cute and adorable. So, but like we pieced together that Dun 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 was heart, but if you're just reading that without other context, it's like, is this a big explosion? Is this gunshots? Is this my heart? And this, I think, boom, boom. I mean, maybe it is supposed to be like, this is both, like, boom, boom, boom is both an explosion, but also your heart.
I bet there's an overlap there between, like, firing a gun, but also, like, your heart beating.
Yeah. It's supposed to be, it's double entendre.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a double entendre, but, like, as an American, boom, boom, boom makes that more clear to me than dun dun dun, and that's just by virtue of just, again, it's like we were talking about, like their Japanese animal sounds are different than ours in a way that it's like if you read one of theirs and they didn't localize it, you'd be confused what it was getting at if you didn't have like some sort of like pictorial descriptor of it.
But also Google Translate wouldn't know to translate dune to boom because that's not a word.
It's not a word. It's a
dune 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 watashi no my room.
But yeah, this one was another case where the high dive translation was just more correct.
Mm-hmm.
I just love shot through your heart. That one's good. So this next one was the one where I was like, I don't know what the high dive one did, and then Ben's notes were like, oh yeah, no, they were right, that it was this wild chase. So the fan translation Google Translate says, your security you have to check, check, check.
And the high dive was taken instax with the scumbag.
Okay.
So an instack here. Do you want to, Ben? Do you want to do the instax?
Yeah, because I went down a rabbit hole with this one because I didn't know what any of this was. Because partly because I'm an old man and partly because I'm not Japanese. So an instax is like a Polaroid picture, like an instant photo.
Is that a thing in Japan?
Yeah. Yes, okay. I was at the Maid Cafe that I was a part of. I was the photographer. I was the one taking the instax with the scumbag.
When you say it, that it makes instant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
what is tax?
Probably company name. Mine's specifically Fuji. I don't use my film camera that much anymore.
I think Instax is a brand that became like Kleenex.
Polaroid is a
because the whole idea is, especially when you have phones, is that the maid comes over, you take a picture with the maid, and then you get the thing, and either they get to the person coming in gets to keep it, or it like goes up on the wall. It becomes this souvenir, this special, unique souvenir.
This is a really good time to mention that I don't get maid cafes. I'll just put that out there.
So what they say in Japanese, and you've every anime fan has heard this, is they say, I think, chikusho.
Okay.
Chikusho. Like, damn it. Darn it. Yeah, crap. Like, it's that expression of like, ah.
Yeah.
And I think they say, chikusho, instax, instax, instax. That's the actual lyric. Meaning,
like, I'm frustrated. We have to go take pictures. That's where check comes from.
Here's another one.
Yeah,
and the chiki, like they do say chiki, or checky. That's what they say. Checky. That is the checky. She says chikusho, checky. And so I think it's like. Shit, I got to take a picture. Click of the camera. Yeah. I think that's what that is.
Where's security come from?
So when you put the lyrics into Google Translate, Google can't match the words to anything.
Sure.
So its best guess is security.
But isn't it so interesting that, like, this is where it's not, the Google Translate's not good, but it's interesting that, at least conceptually in my brain, your security you have to check, makes sense unto itself. It doesn't make sense in the context, and it's not a good line, but like, oh, check you're in danger because there's a fucking fight going on.
Yes.
So it made my brain could make it make sense, but it's 100% just not what the line says.
Yeah.
But I just love, and also just the specific texture, the grit of the localization of take an insect with that scumbag. Like, what a good, what wonderful word choice.
So like the Google Translate, this is a case where if you read what you put in and then you read what Google actually translated, it is not the same. Google did not translate what I put in when I copy and pasted this, but it did come out as exactly what they had. And the checky turned into check, which is, it could, if you were to say check in Japanese,
You'd say check.
you could say checky or chekku. So it wasn't a bad guess on Google's part. Google just didn't know it was translating a comedy show about maid yakuza.
Yeah.
And
Comedy drama at times. I don't want to undersell that. Hey, Princess of the Maids.
hey, maid princesses from hell.
So it's like, where did the hell come from?
This took me down another dark road, and if I didn't have the kanji, I wouldn't have gotten it. Honestly, if I didn't have the kanji and I didn't have the high dive translation, I wouldn't have gotten this one. Because literally the lyrics say, Meido Princesu. And
They just say it in essentially English.
yeah, but there is a play on words here. Because this time, the Meido is written with the kanji for dark, like dark and road. Dark meaning like negative. So those kanji can be read Meido.
Oh, literally. So the Japanese sounds you make, like the words you
the
say
Japanese
in Japanese
words happen
sound
to sound like
made in
when
English.
they say made
Oh
in
my
English.
God.
So it also is saying dark path because they are criminals on the, there's the light but they're on the dark. Like, see, this is why when you're like, it's this, if this mind explosion.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Isn't that wild?
That's okay. So
You're speaking. You guys speak English? No, we speak Gronkian. No, it sounds like English. No, we're speaking Gronkian. Like, it just happens to be like wild, incredible.
when you're listening to them say it out loud,
It just sounds like Meido.
it sounds like they're saying Meido, which they have done elsewhere in the
But
song.
when you read the subtitles on the screen,
or if you were Japanese
ones, you would see it like
or
that.
if you were
right?
Japanese, you could hear it like that. Like suddenly you would hear.
Oh, you hear Meido.
pun.
Okay.
It sounds like made to us first because we're hearing English because we know English.
This is going to be more work for me while I'm editing this, but I am going to now put the first instance where they say made in English and this one. I'll put them back to back so you can try and hear the difference.
This is one where like I don't know how this sounds to a Japanese ear. This is well beyond the limits of my powers. If I didn't have the high dive stuff to work backwards from, I never would have caught it.
Mm-hmm.
But in the kanji of the lyrics, they use those kanji and they don't use it anywhere else in the song. And the rest of the song, Meido, is I think it's in katakana.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
That is so.
See, like this, but this is also the other. This is the other part of localization where it's just like it's not a 4D. There's no pun here in the high dive one because how the heck would you capture that? And that's what some of localization is. We talked about that a couple episodes ago with the Undertale one, where it's like you can't win every battle perfectly. You fight where you can.
I wonder if the people who did this translation, like, was it difficult for them?
I'm sure. This takes a lot of freaking because you have to know enough about Japanese, you have to know enough to know the puns or if there's any cultural references, and then you have to be clever and creative enough to formulate that into English. You still have to make it creative and interesting. You have to, like I always say, you have to reconstitute the pieces that you've now put through the wire that is the translation to localize it and make it reconstituted into a meal for consumption. And it's so hard. Heard about the Undertale one where it's like you have to know from English to Japanese. You need to know enough about English to know that something that seems really innocuous is a reference.
Yeah. This is and
some of them they would have missed without freaking notes. And this is just an open. Like that's why I felt this felt very even like as long as we're talking about like this felt more dissectable. Imagine this. Every episode of an anime you ever watch. This is an intro. And admittedly, not every line in an anime is going to be so laced with double entendres all the time. Like, this is very concentrated. But this has everything. It has all of the parts of it where it's like, here's some very specific to you slang or dialogue. Here's puns. Here's simple lines, but we reword it in a way that captures the same exact idea, but just gives it more personality and stuff like that. Like, that's what I really wanted to talk about this, because every single line captures little bits and pieces about what makes localization so fascinating and difficult and important. And that's why I wanted to do this. We're not done yet. We're almost done. Let's freaking finish this. Next up is my favorite high dive line. So the Google Translate one is, I have to push, ban, ban, ban. B-A-A-N is how it is spelled. Brad, what do you think that's an onomatopoeia for? Ban, ban, ban.
I have no idea.
Okay.
In Japanese, it would sound like ban, ban, ban.
A drum?
I would have... So high dive goes with stand for me, blam, blam, blam. I would have guessed bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
Myself.
And so a gun. But
gun
earlier
noise.
we did a gun thing that was doon, doon, doon.
Doon. Yeah.
So...
But like when you see bang or blam, you're like, oh, especially with other things, like it much more reads as a sound you know, and not like ban and doon. You're like, what's that? But I just love stand for me or bang bang bang. It's just such a like. Obviously, there's some liberties there, but like, what a wonderful line.
So the full high dive translation is stand for me, whereas the fan translation was I have to push. So the verb, I didn't write down. So just bear with me on this. But the verb they actually use, I looked up, and I've seen it before, and the push thing, I think maybe I know where they got it. Like a potential is like I have to push for this, but it also means recommend or endorse. And this is a verb that is used the way stan is sort of used. When you use it in relation to an idol or somebody,
I'm pushing for you to make it.
Yeah.
Can either of you explain to me where
fan.
Stan
Eminem song.
It's an Eminem song. I know it's not the background is, it's not a good thing to have, but nobody knows that. So it's just not nobody, but the people that made it really popular don't know the context of that song. So
It's like, I'm a super fan.
Have you ever heard Stand from Eminem?
No.
It's not a good ending.
I mean, maybe, but...
Yeah.
We don't have time for this, but it's, if you think of, I try not to think about it anymore because I heard that song multiple times before I heard it starting to take thing, because it's a really, both Brad and people at large, if you don't know the origins of Stan, listen to Stan by Eminem. It is a genuinely really good, I would say, haunting song, almost. Like, it's not like a lot of his other work, but it's so good.
So
I mean, I would argue
listen to it on a rainy day. It's got vibes.
I would argue that Stan isn't a good thing anyway. So
well, no, but whatever. We don't have time. That's not what this podcast is about. We can talk about it afterwards.
One thing I wanted to point out real quick, because this is the last line where it's really going to matter, is the flavor you're getting from the high dive is that these are kind of like, I don't really know what a good modern term would be, but it's kind of like a material girl kind of
trendy
thing. Like their way of speaking is like, oh my God, like that Valley Girl, bubbly.
But the Japanese version.
Almost airheaded, but it's that Gap Moe thing where they're contrasting it with, and I'm murdering people
but that's the thing. Like, it's also, it plays in the anime because it's like, I don't necessarily like an act, but like literally and early in the series, they talk about one of them, like, she's able to become not human when she's out on the floor. Like, she's just able to completely get rid of whatever consciousness she has, and she is just a maid that is a vessel, and then she goes back. Like, it's like that ability to just ignore whatever other signals are going on. You are a maid, and this is what you're doing right now, and that can play into both go take an in-tax with the scumbag, and also, like, we got to go do a hit on these guys.
Yeah.
So, okay. Ending stretch. A pannier fluttering grand wheel.
Petticoats whirl in a scuffle.
Now, we had a conversation about this before, because I didn't know what a pannier was, but I knew what a petticoat was, and I thought that was a good translation. And then Brad's like, I know what a pannier is. So what's a pannier, Brad?
It's cheese.
Is it a...
Oh, wait, that's it. I think that's what you said then, wasn't it? Yeah, dang it. Yeah.
Is it not pannier?
It's probably French. It looks like it's French.
It probably is.
Yeah, because that's...
I mean, that's where they took the maids from.
So they're French maids. Like, they're dressed as French maids.
Yeah, that's the classic black and white.
So I think the pannier is probably... It is the actual name of the garment.
Right.
And they say it, you can hear them saying it.
Petticoat is something that people would more understand.
More accessible.
It's what I knew. I had a petticoat when I was a maid. I still have the petticoat if I ever get a new one. It's the skirt that it's the fluffy skirt you wear underneath.
People get.
It's the fluffy skirt you wear underneath your actual skirt that helps both keep things hidden and also puff up the skirt more, so it's more fun and So that's your petticoat.
Yeah. So I think high dives is fine, but I think it's condescending to replace a word just because you don't think I'll know it.
Well,
Granted, I didn't know it.
People would probably think it's cheese.
I love petticoats whirl in a scuffle because it also helps that the character saying that is like my favorite one, and she's the one that was like in prison and came back, so her like way of speaking is like a little more old fashioned. And I feel like that line captures that well because she like doesn't really sing any other major lines in the song, so it's just fun to see her Ronco, my favorite, pop up and say a line. Hide and seek at a maid cafe.
Hide and seek at the maid cafe.
Whatever. Yeah. Sometimes translations, the direct translation's correct. It's
The
not
Japanese particle indicates like they don't specify things the way we do. They have a different sort of logic for their particles of speech, and so it's not clear if it is one maid cafe of many in Japanese or a specific maid cafe. But in English, we would make that distinction.
And if you would say something like the maid cafe, you could be indicating it is the best one.
You could. I don't think that they're doing that in this one, but they would say Psycho no maid cafe.
nice service, big success. Straightforward.
Nice service for booming sales. And
We get more explosion.
Yeah, the boom is better. And also that's probably how we would say it in English. Like they specify that it's nice service for booming sales, whereas the other one is a literal translation of the Japanese where they don't
connect them conceptually.
Yeah, they don't use that article.
Romance is a no-no.
Falling in love is a big no-no.
I think they actually literally say no. They say waba-da-da no, and then they go to the next line.
I think based on all the city pop I've ever listened to, if they're going to say romance, they would have said romansu. So I think falling in love is a better translation of this. But they're both valid.
It's also foreshadowing for an episode. Wow. Not ours, the Maid Cafe anime, just to be clear.
One of ours too.
Yeah, true. Foreshadowing. And finally, the last line. In the secret garden.
A cutesy garden of secrets. So the only note
It does end on that, yeah.
The only note I really have on this one is I didn't recognize the word, so I looked it up in the dictionary, and it was flower garden. So I don't know if it's a secret flower garden. That's what it literally says. I don't know if a flower garden in Japan carries the connotation of being cutesy.
I think it's the idea that like the maid cafe is this secret garden of, beautiful beautiful flowers. So hidden away where romance isn't, love is a no-no. Here is this secret garden of these cute women dressed as animals.
I mean, at this point, I'd give it to High Dive. I'm assuming the person who translates this is fluent, and I am not by any stretch. So
there's also the thing, and this is probably not what they're going for, but the fact that they say secret, there's the thing where, women need to go to the powder room. They say, I'm going to go pick flowers.
I've never heard that.
Never heard
before.
that?
I thought you were going to say
but I
something
did.
else. But
I have heard secret garden as a thing for like genitalia.
Yeah.
I have heard that.
So I wonder, this could be one of those ones where there's like multiple levels to it.
Maybe.
I said it before and I will say it again. Despite being about women in maid outfits, this anime is not horny, and I really respect it for that.
There is something about like I wonder if that's like a Western connotation that maybe they weren't going for. Is like secret garden for us, I think is like Eden, forbidden.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if that really. Maybe I'm putting something on that's not there.
Secret Eden.
I mean, there could be other, like, I don't know, like, I feel like that could also be some turn of phrase in Japanese as well, if it translated so literally.
If flower garden, I could see that just being like an especially cutesy garden.
I think it also just makes me think of the garden from Spy Family, where what's her name lives, the one that sends out Yor on the hit contracts.
When I'm looking stuff up, if anybody cares, I was looking all this stuff up on gshow.org, which is like the online dictionary I like. And it's not so great with the slang. Like normally if I want to look for slang, I got to go trolling through Japanese forums.
I mean, it's already hard enough to figure out slang in English, let alone another language where you can't get like I don't know if that's what that means, because we don't get as many opportunities to
But
see
you
it
can
and
very
use.
easily just look it up on Urban Dictionary.
In English.
If you're aware of a Japanese equivalent, like a native Japanese equivalent of Urban Dictionary, comment, because I would love that.
Well,
Yeah, that'd be
and
useful.
something we should say, like, we do have some listeners who have some good information. We actually just got a comment on one of our YouTube versions of heroin addiction, and I will give a shout out on the next episode there. But they gave us some information on Fantasy of a Stepmother about some of the history and regions and stuff. So if anybody's listening and they have more insight into this whole thing and the localizations and everything, please let us know. You'll definitely get a shout out, and we'll talk all about it. So
Yeah. But no, this was my segment. I loved this show so much that I was like, I want to do something with it. And after experiencing this and me being always up about localization, this felt like, comparing them felt like such a like perfect way to show that difference in example between translation and localization, while still keeping the sort of a lot of the feel of it, this thing that is very specifically Japanese, of the Maid Cafe and to an extent of the Yakuza. So I think it was just really cool to talk through it and show other people that, because we can talk about like, oh, this little thing here and there, but when you can literally go bit by bit through something that is, even if it took us a while, as bite-sized as an intro that you would watch in like a minute and a half, that even in that there's so much going on that you can see or not see.
Yeah.
So, or experience.
Well, and like all the puns and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we talk about Japanese humor not always translating. It's like, it's there. There's wordplay. This is good.
Yeah,
writing.
like wordplay, like not always necessarily like funny, but like wordplay, the double entendres, the whole like fully loaded and the visuals going on. Like there's like that intro pops a lot more when you have that fun dialogue going with it, and not just like, here's a standard, here's the bare minimum to get you the concept, but no like there's no flavor or fun. You know, you can't just eat flavorless things all the time. You need some spice in it.
It's like the whole show itself is because it's that really like obnoxiously cutesy voices, like you said. Like it's an adult woman going as high pitched as she possibly can because guys find it cute, and I don't like that myself. Yeah. But the contrast of it actually being smart, double entendre, they're communicating, like they're using this cutesy language to communicate something kind of dark. It's like the undertones.
Yes, it helps communicate to you. This show looks cutesy on the surface, but this show is not vapid. This show is not dumb or schlocky.
well, that's pretty awesome. I think everybody should check that out. At the very least, check out the intro. But sounds like a really good time to watch the whole thing.
You watch it on High Dive while you're watching Oshinoko.
High Dive, 12 episodes. Like I said, I'm sure the sub is fine because the translation of the intro was fine, but I really had a good time with the dub. I thought all the actors did a good job and their scripts were really good. I found it very compelling. So yeah, go check it out.
Awesome. Well, thank you for listening to That Time I Got Reincarnated in the Same World as an Anime Podcaster. We hope you enjoyed listening just as much as we enjoy recording. To find all our social media links, such as our Twitter, Patreon, Facebook, and more, visit our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com. You can also find articles on various topics, as well as new manga reviews. And as I said in the intro, don't forget to let us know if you want to jump on a Discord with us. Please let me know. We would love to hear from you on any of those social platforms, or you can leave a comment on the site. You can even just send an email to Isekai Sensei-Sama at gmail.com. We're always looking for feedback, like I just said, and we want to know how you guys want to connect with us. If you prefer to listen to the podcast in high quality stereo, be sure to check out our YouTube channel, where we simul-release all of these episodes. And before we go, I want to remind you to check out Sugoi Mart, where you can get 15% off your first order by using the link in the description or by using the code APR15 at checkout. Ben, what do you got going on with Words About Books now?
Oh, you guys actually like this. We're doing Battle Royale by Koshun Takami.
Nice.
Is that like a book?
It's a book.
I did not know it was a book.
The book came first.
Yeah, the book came first, and then he did a manga, and
Words
then
about books.
then he did a movie. It's a good. It's not a good book necessarily, but especially in a modern American context. God, but
Ooh, yeah.
yeah, but it's fun. It's fun.
It's fun.
It's a horror book. There's a big content warning on it. But yeah, if you're up for that, I think it's a good time.
Well, thanks again for listening. And you know, if you find yourself transported to a different world, please remember that the staff are people too.
No, I'm always cute.
Da-na-na-na-na. Da-na-na-na-na.
Are you not recording?
I am.
Okay, good.
I should have just had it recording all the time. There's some good bonus content there.
Bunch of us eating and going, ew, there's chunky stuff.
Oh, I forgot. Oh, well, that's not a big deal. I forgot my super secret bonus recommendation.
Oh. Recommend the new Shonen Jump series that just started that I don't remember the name of, that's about MMA.
Okay, I think we're good. You done eating?
For now. You put a bunch of Kit Kats in front of me and pushed record. You knew what you were getting.
How about the original Lord of the Rings movies?
The cartoons?
Yeah.
The
I've
Ralph
seen
Bakshi.
I've seen The Hobbit. I haven't seen the Lord of the Rings one. I watched The Hobbit and I was like, I think I was like an edgy teen and I was like, too sweet. I'm not in it.
Ralph Bakshi made something that was too sweet.
Those are really interesting, though. I don't know if I would call them good, but they are interesting.
They sure are art that happened.
I think this is a bonus thing now, but like, did you ever see the thing where like, because they're all rotoscoped, right? And there's this part where Aragorn is like, I think it's on Weathertop. He's like running or something. And the actor who they then rotoscoped tripped over his sword and they rotoscoped it and it's in the movie.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, the greatest ranger, the true king of Gondor.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was the part where they're chasing after the orcs who abducted.
That's the time you want to trip over your
Okay,
sword.
yeah, maybe that because he didn't catch him. Yeah.
Have you ever seen, I guess that we're on this bonus content, Ralph Bakshi, and this is the man who rotoscoped that in. Have you ever seen or heard of his other movie, Wizards, where at the end, a wizard solves the problem by just taking a Glock out from his cloak and shooting the villain?
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's like this entire magical tale. And the ending, he literally just pulls out a gun and shoots. It's like a meme from now, and it was made in the 70s.
Interesting.
I have no idea if the movie's good. I've never seen it, but that ending punchline makes me smile so much because it's so wonderfully stupid.
I have a humor weakness where something that shouldn't have a gun having a gun makes me laugh every time.
That's why meme of gun is really funny, because it's like there's not supposed to be a gun, like just this wizard man with his cloak and his big beard, and you can't see his eye because his wizard hat's over his head. And just at the end, at his big freaking long arms, he just pulls a fucking Glock out of his cloak and shoots the guy.
I have got an isekai for you.
Oh, I think you've told me that one.
Time I got reincarnated with
bear
my
that has a
M15.
gun.
Oh, well, that one.
Did you say a bear has a gun?
Another one.
Yeah, it's like a teddy bear has a gun.
No.
But no,
There's naked women in it. So
there's
it's
there's
Are they having a good time at least?
most
he has a gun, but there's a Harry Potter fan fiction, My Immortal. It's legendary.
Oh, we're doing this again.
It's terrible. Okay. I bring it up all the time. But there is a point where she's like fallen under Voldemort's spell, and it's author self-insert, and she's like, he wanted me to kill Harry Potter, and that's when Voldemort handed me a gun.
Is that where that edit of Harry Potter where all the wands or guns came from?
Maybe. It's one of the most legendary.
Yeah, where it's just like
I
you
know
have
what you're
magic, you
talking
could
about,
shoot
yeah.
lightning bolts and stuff. It's like, here's a Glock, make it happen.
I don't
It's really funny.
I don't think they made it from that, but that edit is really good.
Pokemon Sword, Pokemon Shield, Pokemon Gun.
Yeah.
Yay.
Avoid the rice milk.
No, don't leave the rice milk out in your hot car. It's hopefully none of us get sick. Mostly me. I was the one that ate the chunks.
I was the one that ate
And figured out, wait a minute, this was milk. Okay, I'm going to make a tangent that's just for the bonus cut, so clip, choppy chop. Do either of you know Pizza Tower?
Yeah.
So I guess there's like some like comics that people have animated from it, where there's the weird like, I'm trying to remember his name. He's the guy that's like based on the Noi that's supposed to be your enemy. Hands him a vial. He goes, "Here, it's milk. Drink it." And Peppino, the main character, drinks it, and he just goes, "That's not milk. That's not milk." And then it's like a hard cut. That's what I felt like drinking the rice wine that had expired. I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't right.
It honestly, I could see it being good if
it wasn't rancid because
Yeah.
he left it out in the hot car.
That's probably why it smelled like that.
Yeah, because it was fucking rancid.
Well, nobody's gotten sick yet.
I mean, give me time. I'm freaking cooking right now, so who knows what's going to come out later. I don't know if I could have just beamed.
Oh my god.
Wow!
Oh
Are
shit.
you okay?
A butt dialed 911.
Oh no!
Okay, we're good. We're good now.
That was really scary.
Just gonna set that a knot in my pocket.
Okay.
Did it actually call 911?
It was starting to. It was.
Okay.
It had a countdown. It was playing.
Yeah,
the-
mine will do the same thing if you hold the button.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Okay, that makes more sense why it was doing the noise.
Where were we?
Foreshadowing for the next heroin addiction.
A little bit,
Yeah.
but also we were just talking about all the.
True.
So I did actually remember what my super secret recommendation was.
Oh, that's good.
I want to tell everybody that they should definitely check out Skip and Loafer. So Skip and Loafer is just sort of a slice of life high school thing. I would call it, it like sits in between drama and comedy. Because there's some like serious stuff that it covers,
A dramedy.
but a lot of it is comedy.
Yeah.
It follows a girl from a northern prefecture. I don't think it's not Hokkaido, but it's northern Japan. And she gets into a prestigious high school in Tokyo. And so she goes by herself. She goes down there and lives with her aunt, who is transgender. And so it's really wholesome most of the time. Like the comedy is good, but like it's got some really nice wholesome moments.
Is it respectful?
It is incredibly respectful.
Ooh,
There,
good for Pride Month.
I actually,
Which this is not releasing. Yeah, this might actually.
I said this earlier. I actually cried. There's a part with the aunt where the grandmother, the aunt's mother, is like, well, no, first of all, her brother, so our main character's dad, is like on the phone and he's like, "Thanks for taking care of her. You know you can come back anytime. Like we miss you." And I'm like crying reading this. I'm like, "Oh my God." It's like it's based.
This is jeez, Brad. Is this would I read this on the decks of manga?
Yeah, so I actually found this to start with because there's an anime of it.
Oh.
And I saw some clips on YouTube, and I only watched like 2 or 3, and I was like, I think I want to read this anime or read this manga. And so I went and started reading it on there.
Manga.
And I got through, there's like 10 volumes or something. I got through it in like 4 days.
This sounds delightful. I would check this out.
Yeah, I think it's great. And it covers like the tropes of like high school slice of life stuff, but then it like turns it on its head and everything. Because the main character is like so earnest. She's very book smart, but she's clumsy, and like she's in this completely unnatural environment to her, being in Tokyo, coming from like the countryside and everything.
Yeah. Just backwoods.
And there's this romance that sort of romance, but maybe they're just friends going on with this like very like the classic popular boy, you know, he gets along with everybody, but like he's only got eyes for her. And like we explore what's going on with him. And it's just, I can't recommend it enough. It's really
Skip
good.
and Loafer, you said?
Yep.
Like the footwear?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Who's Loafer? Is Loafer a character or is it just...
Neither of them are Skip or Loafer. I don't know. I honestly don't know why it's named that.
Well,
Maybe
it's
they
gonna
went
stand out of my brain 'cause
skipping
it's in English,
in their
and
loafers.
it's short.
Well, I think a skip is also I think it's like a kind of sandal.
Can you skip in loafers?
Probably.
I can. Probably.
But yeah, it's great. You should definitely check it out.
Shh, secret recommendation.
Himitsu no recommendation.
I really like how we're like, oh, the middle segment is too long to go in here, and we've been recording for 2.5 hours.
To be fair, it was too long to go in there. All right, we good?
Turn the air on.
Yep.
Free me.